Chapter 767. Fine, I'll concede. Do you think this prince doesn't dare? The seventh prince of Yong glared at Luo Qingtong coldly. Do you think you can win by using words against me? So what if I concede to them? The difference between the martial emperor realm and the sage realm is like heaven and earth. Furthermore, I was born in the great Yong dynasty. My strength is not comparable to an ordinary sage realm cultivator. What can they use to compete with me? Thinking of this, the seventh prince immediately said, "This prince will concede to you using both hands and feet." Before he could finish his words, Feng Wan's cold voice suddenly rang out. "I can concede to you using both hands and feet, but my seventh imperial uncle has paid such a huge price. If there are any accidents in the competition later, you can't blame Great Yong. Don't you think so? After all, life and death are all fated." As soon as she said that, the expressions of the people around her changed. Feng Wan's words were clearly murderous and wanted to kill Grandfather Luo. With her words, even if the seventh prince killed Grandfather Luo in the competition later, he would have an excuse. Hearing this, the seventh prince of Yong reacted and immediately said, "That's right. Since this prince has restricted my strength, if I accidentally use too much strength in the competition later, it won't be this prince's fault." As he said this, the murderous intent on his face was revealed without a doubt. My niece still knows how to use the other party's words to suppress us. The other party wants to take advantage of me? Sure. Exchange it with your life. The seventh prince of Yong smiled malevolently. All right. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Since that's the case, let's make a life and death agreement. To prevent anyone from going back on their word. What else could Luo Qingtong say when someone voluntarily came to seek death? Naturally, she would help them. Originally, she was still thinking of how to deal with these people from Great Yong, but now, she didn't need to think anymore. The other party came to her on their own accord. Later, she would let this first princess and first genius from Great Yong know what it meant to lift a rock and smash one's own foot. All right. Hearing Luo Qingtong's answer, Feng Wan sneered. She was afraid that they would go back on their words and not restrict their strength. It was a pity that people from low-level countries were people from low-level countries. They were ignorant. Even if Imperial Uncle's whole body was tied, her grandfather couldn't beat him. He was just asking for humiliation. Later, she would ask the royal uncle to humiliate her grandfather. Then, he would be tortured to death in front of her. As Feng Wan thought, he suddenly, Luo Qingtong, Luan Luo. During this process, Yi Qianming had been sitting steadily and had people stop Empress Dowager Yan Shi's desperate actions. He believed that the woman wouldn't do anything that she wasn't confident in. He also believed that she wouldn't joke around with her grandfather's life. Did that mean that she really had a plan? Yi Qianming raised his eyebrows slightly. It allowed a martial emperor to defeat a sage realm expert. He had to admit that Luo Qingtong had piqued his curiosity. Shua! Old Master Luo signed the life and death agreement in front of him boldly. For Empress Dowager Yan Shi, not to mention a life and death agreement, he would even dare to go through a mountain of swords and a sea of flames. What's more, he still had the soul borrowing diagram drawn by his granddaughter. Thinking of the powerful force he once felt, Old Master Luo clenched his fists. Chapter 768. Boom! Old Master Luo's figure landed directly on the high platform. Humph! Idiot, you can't wait to die. Great Yong's seventh prince sneered, and with a leap, he also appeared on the high platform in the square. Swoosh! As the two figures appeared on the high platform, the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty also raised his hand. A powerful defensive light instantly shrouded the high platform. This defensive light would only disappear if one of the two died. And when the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty made his move, Yi Qianxian also looked up indifferently. Swoosh! A ray of light instantly swept out from the man's sleeve. It split into two in mid-air, and instantly tied up Great Yong's seventh prince's hands and feet. Since the other party had signed a life and death agreement with Old Master Luo, Yi Qianxian naturally would not give him any chance to break free and cheat. Under the restraint of his aura, Great Yong's seventh prince's hands and feet seemed to be glued together, and could not be separated. Seeing this scene, the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty suddenly smiled. He originally wanted to ask Ming Zun to make a move. After all, he did not trust the people of the Great Yong sacred dynasty. Of course, The other party did not trust him either. Therefore, he could only ask Ming Zun to make a move. He did not expect that the other party had already made a move without waiting for him to speak. It seemed that Luo Tong was indeed from the Black Field, and was highly valued by Ming Zun. Otherwise, why would a dignified underworld venerable lower himself to do such a thing? This thought made the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty a little more confident in old Master Luo. After all, if Ming Zun valued someone so highly, there must be something extraordinary about him, right? But he did not know that the other party valued someone else. Seeing Yi Qianxian's move, Luo Qingtong's eyes were smiling. This man actually made a move personally. It was really a waste of talent. But with him making a move, Great Yong's 7th prince could forget about breaking free. He could only wait to be beaten up by his grandfather on the stage. Feng Wan's gaze also abruptly froze. His hands under his sleeves could not help but abruptly tighten. She didn't expect Yi Qianxian to take care of such a small matter himself. A dignified underworld venerable was paying too much attention to this small Luo family. Just because of evil Dr. Ghost Eye? Wasn't he spoiling her too much? Feng Wan felt another burst of jealousy and hatred. He couldn't get what he longed for, but it was easily grasped by another person. And that person had once defeated and humiliated her on the spot. This made Feng Wan even more depressed and resentful. 7th Imperial Uncle, don't kill Luo Tong so easily. Torture him for me. She transmitted her voice to the 7th Prince of Great Yong, gritting her teeth tightly. Evil Dr. Gue Tong wanted to protect the Luo family and help him win the Empress Dowager's groom selection. She would not let him do as he wished. Yuan, don't worry. This Luo Tong ruined our plans. Even if you didn't say it, I wouldn't let him die so easily. Great Yong's 7th Prince transmitted his voice back coldly. His hands and feet were bound, but he was not completely defenseless. It was just that he could not use some cultivation methods and martial techniques. But with his strength that had just entered the Saint Realm, what cultivation methods and martial techniques did he need to use against a martial emperor? He could easily beat the other party into a dog. Chapter 769. Let the competition begin. The voice of the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty rang out. In an instant, the 7th Prince of Great Yong sneered. In an instant, his entire body flew up and rushed straight towards old Master Luo. Now, he was going to beat this man from an inferior country who dared to snatch his woman and spoil his plans in front of everyone. Let me give you a handicap? Humph. Even if I give you a handicap, my strength is enough to beat you to a pulp. The 7th Prince of Great Yong's face was extremely ferocious. He sneered at old Master Luo in front of him. With a boom, the power around him exploded. The vast and majestic power of heaven and earth gathered from all directions in an instant. The so-called Saint Realm expert had cultivated his martial arts to the extreme and had transcended mortality to become a saint. A Saint Realm expert could use his own strength to attract the help of the power of heaven and earth. He could also command the spiritual power of heaven and earth and plunder the spiritual power of those who were weaker than him. In other words, when facing a Saint Realm expert, an expert below the Saint Realm would not be able to absorb any power from the surroundings. When the power in his body was exhausted, he would completely become an empty shell. He would have a powerful cultivation but would not be able to use it. This was the terrifying part of a Saint Realm expert. Of course, there were many times when they wouldn't even be able to wait until their strength was exhausted before they were killed by the terrifying might of a Saint Realm expert. Rumble! As the power around the 7th Prince of Great Yong gathered, the spiritual power of heaven and earth in all directions moved strangely. All of it turned into the power of the 7th Prince of Great Yong and suppressed old Master Luo. Luo Tong! Seeing this scene, Empress Dowager Yen she could not help but worry in her heart and stood up immediately. At this time, she did not care whether she would anger the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty. No one knew Luo Tong's strength better than her. This man, before she chased him away, was only a martial emperor. She did not know what method he had used to directly raise his strength to the martial emperor level. After jumping so many levels, no one knew how much foundation he had damaged. It was very likely that his life was ruined. It was impossible for him to make any further progress on the path of martial arts. Under these circumstances, how could he contend against Great Yong's 7th Prince, who had just entered the Saint Realm? The difference between the martial emperor realm and the Saint Realm was 2 whole realms. Even if Great Yong's 7th prince's hands and feet were bound, he still possessed the strength of someone who had just entered the sage realm. Thinking of this, Empress Dowager Yan Shi's heart instantly felt a sharp pain. She clenched the dagger in her hand. Suddenly, he made up his mind. That was, if Luo Tong died here, then she would not commit suicide. She would marry Great Yong's 7th prince and then find an opportunity to perish together with him. She had already done all she could for the Great Chu. However, she felt that she owed Luo Tong too much. Thinking of how she had always been angry with him because of the past, brooding over what had happened back then and treating him coldly, the tears in Empress Dowager Yan Shi's eyes continued to flow down. If she had known that this day would come, she would have treated him well. The two of them were in perfect harmony. Luo Tong. She got up recklessly and was about to rush to the place where the high platform was. At this moment, there was a boom, followed by Old Master Luo's loud and sonorous voice in an instant. Chapter 770. As Old Master Luo's voice rang out, everyone's eyes instantly focused on him. Then, except for Luo Qingtong and Yi Chenxian, everyone's expression changed drastically. Oh my God! Boom! In an instant, the seats of the many courtiers of the Great Chu were flipped over by them. Everyone looked at the scene on the high platform in shock. Some people were even flipped over by their own seats and fell to the ground in a sorry state. Everyone's face was filled with shock and stupefaction. The scene in front of them was really beyond their common sense. On the high platform, around Old Master Luo, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was gathering. The power of the sage state. Oh my God! Everyone looked at this scene with their mouths agape. This was not King scientific at all. Was this really not a hallucination? Everyone looked at the aura of power around Old Master Luo in shock. Martial Emperor Realm. Martial Emperor Realm. Martial Emperor Realm. What the CK? But who could tell them what the spiritual chi of heaven and earth that was gathering around him was? Could it be that Great Yong's 7th prince felt that it was too boring for him, a sage state expert, to fight a martial emperor realm expert, so he deliberately gave some of the spiritual energy to him so that he could fight himself? What nonsense! They could tell that the spiritual energy around him was completely different from the one gathered by Great Yong's 7th prince. It was obvious that Old Master Luo had gathered the spiritual energy himself. So who could tell them, how the hell did he do it? This was like seeing a ghost. If a martial emperor realm expert could gather the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and use the power of the sage state, then what was the use of those sage state experts? This was simply impossible. But the reality in front of them told them that such an impossible thing had really happened. What the CK? Bei Qing and Feng Yu were also stunned. Like Yi Chenxian, they had guessed that the evil doctor must have a backup plan. That was why they dared to bring Old Master Luo to the groom selection. But what the CK? This backup plan was too frightening. A martial emperor realm expert had the power of a sage state expert? How were those saint realm experts supposed to live? More importantly, those experts who had reached the martial emperor realm. No, those experts who had reached the martial emperor realm and above would all go crazy. After all, who wouldn't want to have the power of a sage state expert in advance? And those powerful forces and clans would probably go crazy as well. After all, with such a method, their families would have many experts who were comparable to the sage state experts. Damn it! This could completely reshuffle the power balance of the continent. After all, how terrifying the power of a sage state expert was. If a family suddenly had many experts, Bei Qing and Feng Yu shuddered at the thought. Oh my God! The evil doctor, this was amazing. He had pierced through the heavens. He stared unblinkingly at the young girl below the stage who was as beautiful as a flower. Such a slender and weak body, yet it often hid an ability that made him feel incomparably surprised and astonished. Eyes every time. She was like a huge treasure, tempting him to dig deeper, but he could never get enough of her. This was the woman he loved. Chapter 771. Buzz. As Yi Chenxian's sleeves fluttered. In an instant, a huge wave of power emanated from his body. In an instant, it suppressed everyone. Boom! Following the explosion of power from Yi Chenren's body, the various gazes in the area instantly froze. Especially the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty sitting next to Yi Chenxian. His eyes lit up when he saw the surging aura around Old Master Luo. When he felt the aura exploding from Yi Qianren's body, his sparkling eyes instantly froze. Almost instantly, everyone reacted. Luo Tong was from the Black Field. So the fact that he possessed the power of the Saint Realm, which defied common sense, was something the Dark Domain did for him? Could it even be related to the Black Field's Ming Zun? Thinking of this, the dark thoughts in everyone's hearts that had yet to breed were instantly annihilated. If it was related to the Black Field's Ming Zun, then no matter how good and coveted this method was, it was not something they could covet. The transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty also secretly lamented in his heart. If it were not for the Black Field and not related to Ming Zun, he would definitely do anything to obtain the method that could allow a martial emperor to possess the power of the Saint Realm. But now, he shook his head. But soon, he was happy again. Not for anything else, but because Luo Tong was proposing to Empress Dowager Yan Shi. In other words, Luo Tong would be considered half a member of the royal family in the future. Under such circumstances, the royal family of the Great Chu sacred dynasty still had an advantage over others. After all, others might not be able to get this method from Ming Zun, but they could take a detour from Luo Tong. Thinking of this, the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty immediately calculated that after Luo Tong's proposal was successful, he must try his best to win over Luo Tong and befriend him so that Luo Tong would be of the same mind as the royal family. This was a great blessing for the royal family of the Great Chu sacred dynasty. While the transcendent saints of the Great Chu sacred dynasty were overjoyed by this, Feng Yuan's palm broke all of his fingernails with a snap. Her hands were dripping with blood. Who would have thought that the Black Field Underworld Venerable would actually do this for evil Dr. Ghost Eye? A method that could allow a martial emperor to possess the strength of a sage expert. How precious was that secret method? For the sake of the Luo clan's people, for the sake of their successful marriage proposal, Ming Zun didn't hesitate to reveal such a secret technique and let everyone know. As Feng Yuan thought about it, the jealousy in his heart was about to go crazy. On the high platform, Great Yong's 7th Prince looked at the lingering power of the Saint Realm around Grandfather Luo's body, and his heart was filled with shock. This is impossible. The power of Saint Stage. The aura in your body is clearly that of a martial emperor. The other party's strength was pitifully weak. How could he use the power of the Saint Stage and draw upon the power of heaven and earth? When Great Yong's 7th Prince saw this scene, he nearly went crazy. No one would be able to accept the fact that a bug in a piece of trash that they thought they could easily crush had suddenly transformed into an expert that was almost as strong as them. This is impossible. The 7th Prince of Great Yong shouted sternly. You must be using an illusion to confuse me. This prince will not be confused by you. However, before he could finish his words, Grandfather Luo had already launched his attack on the other side. Is that so? Then you should personally experience whether this is an illusion or reality. Chapter 772. In an instant, the attack surged towards Great Yong's 7th Prince like a tidal wave. Sensing the undoubtedly frightening power within, Great Yong's 7th Prince's complexion turned ugly. He was about to dodge when he suddenly realized that he was too shocked to move against Old Master Luo. He had forgotten about it and stopped in his tracks. He was now a ready-made target. At such a close distance, the 7th Prince had no way of dodging. He wanted to extend his hands to block and defend. But his hands and feet were all tied up. Could he break free from the power of the Black Field, Ming Zun? Even if the 7th Prince used all his strength, it was still impossible. At this moment, he finally understood what it meant to be caught in a trap of one's own making. Bang! That attack landed heavily on his body with a boom. In an instant, the 7th Prince of Great Yong was swatted away like a fly. One had to know that the spirit borrowing diagram that Luo Qingtong drew for Old Master Luo was equivalent to someone who had just entered the Sage Realm. It was similar to his strength. But don't forget. In order to show how powerful he was and that he could defeat Old Master Luo in a matter of minutes, he directly said that he would give up his hands and feet. Now that his hands and feet were tied up, and the spiritual energy that Old Master Luo was borrowing was not weaker than his. This time, the 7th Prince of Yong was in for a tragedy. Bang! His body slammed into the light that enveloped the stage. Then, he was bounced back by the vast and majestic power and landed heavily on the ground. Not only did he fail to show off, he was also struck by lightning. That was the 7th Prince of Yong. The 7th Prince of Yong struggled to get up from the stage. Before he could even finish his sentence, Old Master Luo appeared beside him. There was a time limit to the spiritual energy that the spirit borrowing diagram could borrow. With Luo Qingtong's strength, the spirit borrowing diagram that she drew could only last for 15 minutes at most. Hence, Grandfather Luo remembered his granddaughter's words. Without further ado, he stepped forward and started the fight. It was a pity that Great Yong's 7th prince did not even have the chance to say a single harsh word. In an instant, he was sent flying back and forth on the stage by Grandfather Luo like a sandbag. Looking at his miserable state, the crowd no longer doubted that Old Master Luo was a saint. At the same time, he was filled with sympathy for Great Yong's 7th prince. He wasn't as unlucky as him. You're a martial emperor-level expert, yet you can easily crush trash. Unfortunately, the husky had turned into a Tibetan mastiff and tortured himself into a dog. Who do you think would have thought that something like this would happen? Who would have thought that a martial emperor would have the strength of a saint realm expert? The 7th prince of Great Yong had truly been tricked to death. Moreover, he had even signed a life and death agreement with the other party. Thinking of this, everyone felt that they were being cheated. Previously, he had thought that Great Yong's 7th prince was too treacherous and that Luo Zongya was doomed. Looking at it now, it was clear that the 7th prince of Yong had buried himself in a pit. How could this only be described as miserable? However, although they were lamenting, the people of Great Chu were still extremely happy. After all, they were happier than anyone else to be able to see the people of Great Yong being tortured. They had let the other party be so arrogant and complacent. They even dared to dream of encroaching on the throne of Great Chu. They would be tortured to death. As for the people of Great Yong, their faces were already pale. Your Highness? They looked at Feng Yuan with pale faces. Chapter 773. With a boom, Great Yong's 7th prince was viciously smashed into the defensive barrier on the side of Great Yong's army with an extremely distorted posture. The light pillar that shrouded the high platform was splattered with blood. The 7th prince of Yong, who had just been showing off in front of Great Chu, Empress Dowager Yan Shi and the others, scolding Old Master Luo for overestimating himself and thinking that he was a trash from an inferior country, was now smashed into the light pillar like a dead dog. His twisted and mangled face faced Great Yong's army. Soon after, he breathed his last. The 7th prince of Yong was dead. In the Empress Dowager's groom selection, the Marquis Luo Tong from the inferior country of Dongli defeated the 7th prince of the Yong sacred dynasty and won. This result was like a resounding slap to the face of Great Yong's army. Especially Feng Yuan's face. She had previously asked the 7th prince to torture Old Master Luo, so that he would not die so easily. Who knew that the one who would be tortured like a dog in the end was the 7th prince of Yong? The more confident she was before, the more she would be slapped in the face this time. Her previous ambition had completely turned into a joke now. What was even worse was that she was the one who proposed this life and death duel. She wanted to torture Old Master Luo to death so that she could vent her anger on him. She did not want to send the 7th prince of Yong directly into the pit. If not for her proposal, the 7th prince of Yong might have lost, but he might not have died. After all, the transcendent saints of the Great Chu sacred dynasty would not watch the 7th prince of Yong die in the Great Chu sacred capital and cause trouble for Great Yong. However, Feng Yuan was full of confidence and directly handed the knife to the other party, allowing the other party to kill the 7th prince of Yong openly without any worries. Thinking of this, Feng Yuan's throat suddenly tasted blood. She boasted that her plans were flawless and she was incomparably smart. At the age of 12, she began to control her father and the Yong court. However, this was the first time she had been tricked by her own schemes to such an extent. She had directly tricked her 7th uncle to death. Pooh! A mouthful of blood surged to Feng Yuan's throat, but she forcefully swallowed it back down. She couldn't lose her composure in front of Yi Qianxian and Luo Qingtong. He let them see his sorry state. Especially Luo Qingtong. This woman. If it wasn't for her grandfather, how could his plan have failed? And that evil Dr. Ghost Eye. If she hadn't helped the Luo clan and invited Ming Zun to help, how could he have miscalculated? Feng Yuan felt a burst of hatred in his heart. Bas. Following the death of Great Yong's 7th prince, the defensive barrier covering the stage began to dissipate. Haha. Qingtong, Grandpa won. Grandpa Luo stood in the middle of the stage and laughed at Luo Qingtong. There was an indescribable joy in his heart. He had never thought that there would be a day when he would be able to defeat a Saint stage powerhouse as a martial emperor. That feeling was simply too awesome. His granddaughter was simply too powerful. No wonder her subordinates were always clamoring about how she was a reincarnated immortal. In Grandpa Luo's opinion, even a reincarnated immortal wouldn't be as powerful as his granddaughter. Humph. Looking at Grandpa Luo's happy face, Feng Wan's expression became even colder. Let's go. She stood up abruptly and appeared on the stage in a flash. She raised her hand and grabbed the corpse of Great Yong's 7th prince. Chapter 774. Whoosh! A figure appeared in front of Great Yong's 7th prince's corpse even faster than her. He raised his hand and grabbed the corpse. Then, he disappeared in a flash. Sumeru Spatial Artifact. Seeing the other party's actions, Feng Wan fiercely clenched his teeth and looked at the beautiful girl standing in front of him with jealousy and coldness. Luo Qingtong. Looks like the evil Dr. Ghost Eye treats you well. How could a mere daughter of a marquis from an inferior country possess something like a Sumeru spatial artifact? Obviously, it must have been given to her by the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. And where did the evil Dr. Ghost Eye come from? Obviously, it came from the Black Field. It was given to her by Ming Zun. After all, a Sumeru spatial artifact that could store a corpse was not an ordinary Sumeru spatial artifact. The 4 great sacred dynasties had very few of them. Other than Ming Zun, where else could the evil Dr. Ghost Eye get it? This Luo Qingtong was really lucky. Thinking like this, Feng Wan looked at Luo Qingtong as if poisoned. Return my uncle's corpse, she said coldly. Like the Prince of Ning, the 7th Prince of Yong also had the bloodline power of the Yong royal family. If this bloodline power was collected, it could create another genius of the royal family. This was the reason why the transcendent saint of the Chu sacred dynasty deprived the Prince of Ning of his bloodline power after he executed him. This kind of bloodline power could help warriors advance and comprehend realms better. After all, it inherited the cultivation experience and techniques of experts above the saint realm. Possessing the power of these bloodlines was equivalent to temporarily opening up a cultivation path that led to experts above the saint realm. Of course, after reaching the saint realm, everything depended on the warrior himself. This bloodline power could not help. But even so, this bloodline power was powerful enough. Moreover, the 7th Prince of Yong had already reached the Saint Realm and was a direct descendant of Yong. The bloodline power in his body was not ordinary. Luo Qingtong knew the benefits of this bloodline. Naturally, she was unwilling to let go of Great Yong's 7th Prince's corpse. Moreover, the people of Great Yong had come aggressively and humiliated her grandmother. They were even delusional enough to lay their hands on her grandfather. Would it be all right if Great Yong's 7th prince died? Luo Qingtong expressed that there was no such thing. My apologies, Princess Feng Wan. The life and death agreement states that life and death are determined by the heavens. After ascending the stage, everything will be at the mercy of the other party. It's written in black and white. You won't deny it, will you? Luo Qingtong looked at Feng Wan, who had a cold expression on his face. The smile on his lips was indescribably evil. Since Great Yong's 7th prince is dead, then his corpse should naturally be handled by us. As for how to deal with it, I believe that your Great Yong doesn't need to concern yourself with it. You! Feng Wan was so angry that he gritted his teeth. This was indeed written in the life and death agreement. But it was deliberately written in order to better torture Grandfather Luo. They were only talking about the punishment on the stage. When did they say that they were going to punish the corpses as well? But at that time, she did want to let 7th Imperial Uncle torture Grandfather Luo to death, and then let him torture his corpse. But she did not expect that Luo Qingtong would use this against her. Luo Qingtong, don't go too far. Feng Wan's voice was cold. Chapter 775. Great Yong's 7th prince's corpse contained a large amount of bloodline power, which was very important to the Yong royal family. Even if the corpse was to be lost outside, without Great Yong's secret method, it was impossible to extract the bloodline power from it. But losing this bloodline power was also a great loss to the Yong royal family. The Great Yong sacred dynasty would never allow such a thing to happen. So, the Great Yong sacred dynasty is not going to abide by the rules of the life and death agreement that you just made? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at Feng Wan. But this is not up to your great Yong sacred dynasty, right? This life and death agreement was signed under the witness of the Blackfields Mingzun and the Chu royal family's Saint Transcendence. I'm afraid your Yong royal family is not qualified to break it. That's right. The Saint Transcendence of the Great Chu sacred dynasty could not wait to see the people of the Great Yong sacred dynasty suffer. Luo Qingtong's refusal to release the corpse of the 7th Marquis of Yong did not benefit him in any way, but he was happy to see the Great Yong dynasty lose the bloodline power of a saint realm cultivator. Princess Feng Wan, this life and death agreement was proposed by you, and it was you who wanted to sign it. Now you are going back on your words. Are you treating me and Mingzun as nothing? When the Saint Transcendence of the Great Chu sacred dynasty said this, he finally vented his anger of being forced by Feng Wan to continue the Empress Dowager's groom selection. He said coldly, "Not to mention you, even if the Saint Transcendence of your Great Yong sacred dynasty came, I'm afraid they would not dare to say this in front of me and Mingzun." His words made Feng Wan bite her lips for a while. Her expression was ugly. She looked at the Saint Transcendence of the Great Chu sacred dynasty, and then looked at Yi Chenxian, who was sitting there with an indifferent expression and did not even lift his head. She suddenly gritted her teeth and said, "I must bring the corpse of 7th uncle back." As she spoke, she turned to Luo Qingtong and said, "Luo Qingtong, I won't say much to you. Let's have a match. Do you dare?" Feng Wan stood proudly on the high platform, raised his head and said, "I will suppress my strength to the same level as you. Let's have a match. If you lose, you have to return 7th uncle's corpse to me. If I lose, then from now on, our Great Yong imperial family will never utter a word about 7th imperial uncle. Not only that, I can also promise on behalf of Great Yong that we will not offend Great Chu for the next 10 years. As soon as Feng Wan spoke, the expression of the transcendent saint from the Great Chu changed. Within 10 years, they would not invade Great Chu. This promise was a little heavy. If he had 10 years, the new emperor of Great Chu would be able to slowly grow up. Empress Dowager Yan Shi's eyes also narrowed. Great Yong's covetous eyes on Great Chu had always been a hidden danger in her heart. Now that Feng Wan made such a promise, with her title of Holy Princess, this promise was still valid. Moreover, she had made the promise in front of the Blackfields Mingzun and the transcendent saints of Great Chu. Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong. The eyes of the people of Great Chu were full of anticipation. The lips of the transcendent saint from the Great Chu sacred dynasty also twitched. However, he did not speak in the end. After all, Feng Wan's strength was not weak. Even if he suppressed his strength, he was at the same level as Luo Qingtong. Chapter 776. What's more, Feng Wan was the first princess of the Great Yong sacred dynasty, the first genius. When she was at Luo Qingtong's level of strength, she could kill people of the same level in seconds. Now that she had suppressed her cultivation, her strength was only higher than before. Under such circumstances, unless Luo Qingtong was a genius even more amazing than Feng Wan. Otherwise, even if Luo Qingtong agreed to compete with her, she would not win. Thinking of this, the transcendent saint of the Great Chu suddenly shook his head. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. "Okay." Luo Qingtong looked at Feng Wan in front of her with a playful expression. Lower her strength to fight with her? She was worried that she would not have a chance to teach the first princess of the Great Yong sacred dynasty, the first genius. She did not expect that the other party would send the opportunity to her. It also came with a promise to not invade the Great Chu for 10 years. This was a gift she gave to the Great Chu sacred dynasty on behalf of her grandfather. After all, the previous emperor of the Great Chu saved her grandmother. This was a thank you gift for that year. "I'll compete with you in this round." Humph. Feng Wan sneered. She knew that Luo Qingtong would agree. After all, her grandfather was about to marry the Empress Dowager Yan Shi of the Great Chu. How could she not express anything? She deliberately promised not to invade the Great Chu for 10 years, and she really took the bait. However, this promise of his was not something that could be won by just anyone. Feng Wan's expression was proud. Luo Qingtong thought too highly of herself. She would know the difference between her and her in a while. She was determined to get the corpse of the 7th imperial uncle. She would definitely get it back. As for Luo Qingtong, she also wanted her to be humiliated in front of everyone and lose all her face. Thinking of this, Feng Wan suddenly said coldly, Then let's fight. As she spoke, her strength and aura dropped to the same level as Luo Qingtong. At this moment, Yi Chenxian spoke. I feel that this is still not enough. As he spoke, he raised his hand and a ray of light enveloped the platform where Luo Qingtong and Feng Wan were. In just an instant, Feng Wan felt his body suddenly sink, as if he was bound by something. It was clear that the barrier of light that Yi Qianren had conjured had shrouded her and also restricted the strength of her body. The physical strength of the martial spirit realm and the martial king realm were not on the same level. Every time a martial artist's strength increased, the strength of their body would be strengthened accordingly. A truly powerful high-level powerhouse, even if they didn't use any strength, might not be able to move a low-level powerhouse just by standing there. At this moment, Yi Chenxian had suppressed Feng Wan's physical strength to the same level as Luo Qingtong's. Now, the only advantage that Feng Wan had over Luo Qingtong was the comprehension and application of strength and techniques. Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Chenxian with a smile in her eyes. This man was really afraid that she would suffer a loss. However, with Feng Wan's previous physical strength, Luo Qingtong was prepared to end the battle quickly. But now, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up, looking indescribably evil and enchanting. At this moment, with a bang, Feng Yuan, who was on the other side, could no longer hold back the jealousy in her heart. She raised her hand and pulled out her weapon. In her hand, she held an extremely shiny black whip. It had a dragon head and fish pattern and was covered with sharp barbs. It looked extremely sharp and cold. This was not the weapon that Feng Yuan was most proficient in, but it was the most vicious weapon in her hands. Chapter 777. Luo Qingtong, are you ready? If you're ready, let's start. Feng Wan said coldly. In the next second, with a swoosh, she rushed towards Luo Qingtong. Today, she was going to use this long whip to whip Luo Qingtong until she was drenched in blood. Boom! Feng Wan's attack was ruthless. Almost at the same time she moved, the long whip was like a poisonous dragon coming out of its cave. With a swoosh, it flew towards Luo Qingtong. Bang! Seeing the long whip coming towards her, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. In an instant, her figure moved. She stepped to the side and dodged. Rumble! Feng Wan's long whip flew past Luo Qingtong's figure and directly hit the place where she was standing. In the blink of an eye, the golden wood tiles there exploded with a loud bang. In the next second, Feng Wan's eyes suddenly narrowed. Her gaze swept towards the place where Luo Qingtong was dodging. She raised her hand and whipped. Rumble! Following the movement of her hand, in the blink of an eye, the long whip that was like a long nail fiercely embedded in the marble floor suddenly burst out like a poisonous dragon from the marble floor. In the blink of an eye, that bob ripped across the floor. The floor tiles, which were several meters thick, were instantly shattered. Dust flew all over the sky. Feng Wan's white robe flew out from within. In the blink of an eye, that long whip was like a dancing dragon and fiercely lashing towards Luo Qingtong. Bang! Luo Qingtong, dressed in a voluptuous red dress, stood there as if she was stunning the years. The wind and thunder sword in her hand was impressively unsheathed. Clang! A metallic sound rang out. In the blink of an eye, countless sounds of wind and thunder seemed to come from that metallic sound. In the blink of an eye, the long whip and the wind and thunder sword collided. It was like a giant beast meeting a divine weapon. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the two figures were entangled together. As the black whip danced wildly, the wind and thunder swords formed an impenetrable defense. Luo Qingtong's figure was entangled with Feng Wan's. The two of them were actually evenly matched. What? Seeing this scene, everyone below the stage was in disbelief. The people from Great Yong and Great Chu were stunned. Especially that transcendent saint from the Great Chu sacred dynasty. He originally thought that Luo Qingtong would definitely lose against Feng Wan. After all, Feng Wan's true strength was a martial spirit realm expert. What kind of concept was the martial spirit realm? He was about to transcend mortality and enter sainthood. Entering the saint realm. But at this moment, Feng Wan suppressed his own strength. Under the situation where his comprehension of the realm and the use of strength and skills were higher than Luo Qingtong, he was actually unable to do anything to Luo Qingtong. Didn't this mean that Luo Qingtong's talent and strength was much stronger than Feng Wan, the first princess of the Great Yong sacred dynasty, the first genius? Oh my god! Such a genius was actually from an inferior marquise household? She was actually so unknown? If she was in any of the 4 sacred dynasties, they would have worshipped her like an ancestor long ago. What did the inheritance of the family and the continuation of martial arts rely on? The family's genius. The more genius disciples there were, the stronger their strength, and the more prosperous the family and power would be. A genius like Luo Qingtong was enough to support a super family in the sacred dynasty. In the future, she would be heavily nurtured. As early as when she started to remember things, she would be sent to the sacred court and become famous. Chapter 778. However, this transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty did not know this. Although the name Luo Qingtong was unknown, the name of the evil Dr. Ghost I had already spread throughout the entire True Spill continent. While the crowd was still in shock, Yi Qianren, who was on the viewing platform, raised his eyebrows slightly. This was not the true strength of this woman. She could kill a martial king when she was a martial master, but she was now evenly matched with Feng Yuan. What was she trying to do? A cat playing with a mouse? Yi Qianxian knew Luo Qingtong's strength. Even if he did not expose the martial skill he had taught her, it was impossible for her to lose to Feng Yuan with her current strength. Moreover, he had also suppressed Feng Yuan's physical strength to the same level as hers. So what was this woman playing at now? Behind him, Bei Qing and Feng Yu were also surprised. However, their surprise was completely different from that of the Great Chu and Great Yong. Strange. Why do I feel that the evil doctor is deliberately restraining her strength? Yes. When she was in the Tianyu imperial family, she could already kill a martial emperor in seconds. Even if she did not want to use Master's heaven-conquering art, she should have already beaten Feng Yuan to the ground, right? After all, Feng Yuan's physical strength is only at the level of a martial king. Even if she is a genius with extraordinary talent and can display the strength of a martial emperor in the martial king realm, she can't be the evil doctor's opponent. That's right. The two of them muttered. Bei Qing and Feng Yu were very familiar with Luo Qingtong's abnormality and ferocity. Even if she did not use Yi Qianxian's move, with Luo Qingtong's strength, it would not be a problem to deal with Feng Yuan, whose cultivation was suppressed to the martial king realm. The latter thought that he was a genius and could defeat Luo Qingtong at the same level. In fact, Luo Qingtong was the true abnormality of abnormalities. Not to mention the same level, it was normal for her to kill people 2 levels above her. Feng Yuan was a member of Great Yong's imperial family and had access to countless resources. This had forcefully raised her talent from 10 points to 12 points. But Luo Qingtong didn't have anything. She came out from a marquis mansion in an inferior country. Their identities, environments, and the resources they had were completely different. From this, it could be seen that Luo Qingtong's talent was extraordinary. Her strength was abnormal. Bei Qing and Feng Yu had seen too much of Luo Qingtong's sword sweeping. Now that they saw her and Feng Yuan fighting each other, the corners of their lips twitched. This doesn't seem like the evil doctor's style. While everyone was surprised and puzzled, Luo Qingtong was dealing with Feng Yuan's moves while carefully observing her moves. Feng Yuan's strength was far above that of a martial king. When she attacked, she would unconsciously use the strength of a martial king, but it would soon be suppressed, and she couldn't use it. In this process of raising and suppressing her strength, Luo Qingtong could see how her strength revolved and transformed. Boom boom boom. The two's figures intertwined. The more Feng Yuan fought, the more frightened and angry she became. Luo Qingtong's talent and strength were beyond her expectations. Her opponent was able to deal with her attacks with ease. Didn't that mean that if they were on the same level, she might not be Luo Qingtong's opponent? Evil Dr. Ghost I had crushed her alchemy talent, and now Luo Qingtong had crushed her strength and talent. Feng Yuan was burning with anger. She had always thought of herself as one of the best geniuses in True Spill continent. Besides a few geniuses on the Soaring Dragon list, she had no opponent on the Infant Phoenix list. But now, Luo Qingtong had appeared. Looking at the young girl's figure fluttering like a butterfly's wings, Feng Yuan's eyes flashed with a sinister light. Chapter 779. Feng Yuan lashed out with a long whip in her hand. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of whip images appeared in her hand. Under the control of Feng Yuan's movements, the whip shadows flew towards Luo Qingtong like poisonous snakes, dragging long black rays of light. Those rays of light were all the aura of the spiritual power in the surroundings. Feng Yuan's strength was limited to the martial king realm. However, her understanding and knowledge of the use of power were all in the martial spirit realm. Based on the knowledge of this realm, it was enough for her to use a killing move that an ordinary martial king realm expert could not see through. Each of these long whip shadows carried a trace of the spiritual power of heaven and earth that a martial king realm expert could not use or comprehend. Only those at the martial emperor realm and above could use it. But now, Feng Yuan was using it in a battle between martial kings. Although it was only a trace of it, it still made her whip techniques carry a unique and fierce aura. Seeing this scene, the people on Great Chu's side below the stage couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Especially Empress Dowager Yan Shi, who could not help but clench her sleeves. That exquisite silk was almost torn to shreds by her. Qing Tong. Old Master Luo was also worried. Although his granddaughter was powerful, the opponent was the first princess of the Great Yong dynasty. Old Master Luo also knew that Feng Yuan was extraordinarily powerful, so when he saw this scene, he could not help but feel worried. Behind Yi Qianxian, Bei Qing and Feng Yu also frowned. What was the evil doctor doing? If she did not take this seriously, she might lose. Just as everyone was worried, Luo Qingtong was carefully sensing and adjusting the aura in her body. In her mind, Feng Yuan's ascension and descent just now flashed, the transformation of power, and the aura in her body also fluctuated and adjusted. 1 trace, 2 traces, 3 traces. The aura in her body imitated Feng Yuan's aura, and the transformation of power began slowly to a higher level. Rumble! The whip in Feng Yuan's hand was like a long dragon as it rushed towards Luo Qingtong. Above the whip shadow that carried the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, there seemed to be illusory dragon and snake shadows. It was an illusory form blessed by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The force used by Feng Yuan had completely surpassed the level of the martial emperor realm. Even though her current strength were only at the martial king realm, even a martial emperor realm powerhouse might not be able to block this attack. Boom boom boom. The illusory dragons rushed towards Luo Qingtong. The high platform seemed to have been dominated by these illusory dragons. The only thing that was airtight were these long illusory dragons. Luo Qingtong's figure was almost invisible. Clear pupil. Just when Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi could no longer sit still, an incomparably powerful aura suddenly erupted from the high platform with a bang. Martial Emperor Realm. Everyone's faces were filled with shock and surprise. They did not know why such an aura suddenly erupted from the high platform. Wasn't Princess Feng Yuan's strength already restricted by Ming Zun? Could it be that she could still break through the restriction of Ming Zun's aura and increase her strength to the martial king realm? If that was the case, then Princess Feng Yuan's talent and potential were so powerful that no one could look directly at her. Chapter 780. Rumble. On the high platform, the long dragon of whip shadows that filled the sky suddenly surged backwards in the same manner as when it had arrived. Bang! 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 The long dragon whip shadows were smashed into pieces. In midair, the embryonic form of spiritual force that had transformed into an aura quickly vanished into thin air. Under such a scene, Luo Qingtong's figure, which was covered by countless long dragon whip shadows, was revealed. Her red dress fluttered in the wind. Under the cover of the countless broken whip shadows, she looked like a war goddess who had rushed out from the mouths of countless fierce beasts, full of enchanting and domineering aura. What surprised the crowd even more was the aura emitted from her body. The martial royal realm. The aura just now was not emitted by Princess Feng Yuan, but by Luo Qingtong. My God, she directly raised her strength from the martial king realm to the martial royal realm in the battle with Princess Feng Yuan. It wasn't as if no one had ever seen an expert make a breakthrough in the midst of a battle. But no one could be like Luo Qingtong, who calmly broke through the limits of her strength under the pressure of a genius who was far stronger than her. It was known that Princess Feng Yuan's true strength was the martial spirit realm. Even if her strength was limited, she was not someone who could be defeated by an ordinary martial king. When other people were dealing with her, they had already exhausted all their strength and were exhausted. But Luo Qingtong directly broke through to the martial royal realm in the process of fighting with her. Didn't this mean that she did not use her full strength in the battle with Princess Feng Yuan? The crowd suddenly widened their eyes and looked at the scene on the stage in disbelief. Feng Yu and Bei Qing finally understood why Luo Qingtong was so strange before. It turned out that she was using Feng Wan as a stepping stone to improve her strength. The two of them thought of Feng Wan's strength being restricted to the martial king realm and immediately understood what Luo Qingtong was doing just now. She was observing and studying the transformation of Princess Feng Wan's aura in order to improve her strength. Oh my god! That's amazing! My evil doctor! This kind of strength increase method was really going to anger Princess Feng Wan to death. The latter was indeed infuriated. Rumble! When Feng Wan attacked Luo Qingtong, the numerous whip shadows were instantly shattered. Countless phantoms of long dragons whined in the sky, transforming into the most primitive embryonic form of spirit energy. Feng Wan's move was thoroughly broken by Luo Qingtong. She gritted her teeth and was just about to say that Luo Qingtong had violated the rules of the competition when she saw the boundless aura emanating from the young girl's body suddenly withdraw. In the next second, Luo Qingtong's figure flew up. Princess Feng Wan, you've been attacking all this while. Now it's my turn. As Luo Qingtong speaks, she directly pulls out the Wind and Thunder Sword in her hand. Only then did the crowd realize that the Wind and Thunder Sword in Luo Qingtong's hand is in a half-unsheathed state. She actually fought against Feng Wan in this state just now? She actually did not use her weapon all this time? The crowd was shocked and stunned. In the next second, the Wind and Thunder Sword in Luo Qingtong's hand is unsheathed. In an instant, countless thunder-like sounds of the sword, accompanied by innumerable sounds of the wind, resounded. Wind and Thunder Sword cut. As the voice sounded. Chapter 781. Rumble. Countless sounds of thunder and lightning suddenly rang out. Feng Wan's face was filled with shock. She had just been pushed back by the powerful force of Luo Qingtong's advancement. She had not yet stabilized herself. That long dragon of thunder and lightning suddenly descended from the sky. Rumble. Countless shadows of thunder and lightning transformed into a long dragon of sword light, striking down from the sky. Such a scene was thunderous and shocking. The scene of Feng Wan besieging Luo Qingtong with countless long dragon whip shadows was completely returned by the latter. The sword light was like a dragon, thundering and buzzing. Luo Qingtong's strength had been suppressed to the level of a martial king. She wielded the Wind and Thunder Sword with her right hand and slashed down. Bang, bang, bang. Feng Wan's figure was continuously pushed back by the thundering sword light. Under such circumstances, she was in an extremely sorry state. Countless shadows of sword light surrounded her, and the sound of the sword whistling was extremely sharp. Your Highness! Seeing that Feng Wan's figure was completely enveloped by the thundering sword light, the people from Great Yong could not help but stand up with a bang. However, in front of Yi Qianxian and that transcendent saint from Great Chu, they did not dare to be rash. They could only anxiously look at the high platform. Impossible! Her Highness is the first princess of the Great Yong sacred dynasty, the first genius. Even if she suppressed her strength, it is impossible for her to not be a match for that Luo Qingtong. The other party is only the legitimate daughter of a marquis from a low-ranked country. In terms of resources, talent, and family background, how can she be a match for Her Highness? This move looks like a bluff. Her Highness will definitely be fine. However, when they thought of this, when the long dragon of sword light dissipated, their eyes were filled with shock. Bang! Feng Wan's figure fiercely smashed onto the floor. She looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong in shock. The move used by her opponent actually carried a trace of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. How was this possible? Only martial arts techniques of the martial emperor level and above could carry a trace of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to assist in the attack. It was because he was originally a martial spirit realm expert that he was able to unleash such an attack. Why did Luo Qingtong do that? Even though she had just broken through to the martial emperor stage, the martial emperor stage was not the martial emperor stage. Could it be that when she was still a martial king, she had already grasped a martial emperor's martial skill? How was this possible? After all, even she was only able to master martial emperor level cultivation techniques and martial skills after reaching the martial emperor realm. Feng Wan bit his lips and looked at Luo Qingtong. She didn't believe that Luo Qingtong's talent was greater than hers. It must be because Ming Zun had given her some help. It was just like how old Master Luo was able to use the power of the Saint Realm when he was at the martial emperor realm. That must be it. Feng Wan thought as he bit his lips. Luo Qingtong, don't be complacent. Let's see how long you can use that secret technique of yours. Feng Yuan remembered that old Master Luo's strength had returned to normal after the battle between him and the 7th Imperial Uncle. In other words, although that secret technique wouldn't harm the body, it definitely wouldn't last for long. With this thought in mind, Feng Yuan's figure instantly rose from the ground. She fiercely wiped the bloodstains from the corner of her lips. Her white robe flew up, and the shadow of the whip in her hand danced like a dragon again, striking towards Luo Qingtong. I don't believe that you can block it forever. Rumble. The long whip was as thick as a child's arm. It waved in the air like a giant python covered with barbs. It roared wildly as it flew towards Luo Qingtong to bite her. Chapter 782. Swish. Her figure suddenly leaped into the air. In the next second, she appeared directly in front of Feng Yuan. Boom! Feng Yuan brandished his long whip. Before the illusions of the dragon filling the sky could take shape, they were caught by Luo Qingtong. Just like a poisonous dragon that had just come out of its cave, its vital point was suddenly caught by someone. Rumble! Luo Qingtong's 5 fingers suddenly clenched. In an instant, the long whip shattered inch by inch under the powerful grip of her 5 fingers. Clatter! Like a dragon being dismembered by someone, the long whip in Luo Qingtong's hand was suddenly crushed into a pile of scrap iron. The powerful strength qi directly flew out and followed the long whip. Like a tidal wave, it crashed towards Feng Yuan, who was holding the long whip in her hand. Block! Luo Qingtong's smile was evil and domineering. No, she didn't need to block. Feng Yuan really underestimated her. With her strength suppressed to that of a martial king, she still wants me to block her attack? Those martial emperors and martial emperors who were instantly killed by her would probably cry. Even if Feng Yuan was already a rare genius and his strength was suppressed to the martial king realm, he could still use the strength of the martial emperor realm and above. There was absolutely no way for her to block. Luo Qingtong was good at attacking. Boom, boom, boom. The long whip in Feng Yuan's hand shattered inch by inch under Luo Qingtong's movements. She hurriedly let go of her hand, but she was still shocked by the powerful energy transmitted from within and directly flew back. This energy was incomparably solid, without the slightest bit of weakness. Feng Yuan's body was bombarded by this energy, and in an instant, he no longer had the slightest bit of hope. His heart was ice cold. Luo Qingtong's talent and strength were indeed not inferior to his. No. He was even stronger than her. Otherwise, even if Ming Zun had given her the method to use martial skills above the martial emperor realm, her strength would not be so solid. Even though Luo Qingtong had just reached the martial emperor realm, her strength was not weak at all. This only proved that the other party's talent was too strong. As soon as he broke through, he immediately understood the level of power of that realm. That was why her power was so condensed and there wasn't a single gap that could be exploited. This was a girl who was not inferior to her in the slightest, and even more talented than her. Furthermore, the other party was much younger than her. In an instant, Feng Yuan's proud heart felt as if it had been struck by something. She believed that she was the true lady of destiny of this world. Her talent was outstanding, her schemes were outstanding, and she was both intelligent and brave. Almost no other girl could compare to her. But now, Luo Qingtong had completely crushed her. At the same level of strength, Luo Qingtong, the legitimate daughter of a marquis from an inferior country, unexpectedly crushed her. How could Feng Yuan accept this? How could this be? How could she possibly lose to such a lowly person? Before this, Luo Qingtong was still a weak and pitiful person that she could casually kill with a single sentence. She didn't even need to lift a finger to deal with the other party. With just a single sentence, Luo Qingtong was almost killed. That pair of eyes was also blind. Under such circumstances, she was actually beaten to the point of vomiting blood by such a person. She was beaten to the point of retreating step by step, and her pride and dignity were all stepped on by the other party. This was impossible. She would never lose. Feng Yuan's eyes were bloodshot. Chapter 783. In an instant, Feng Yuan's eyes showed signs of turning purple and green. At this moment, with a boom, an extremely powerful force suddenly rose from within Feng Yuan's body. Feng Yuan's figure had just stabilized in midair, and was about to rush towards Luo Qingtong's location. However, The surge of energy caused her brain to buzz for a moment, and she lost control of her body. Master! Feng Yuan was shocked in his heart when he felt the energy aura that burst out from his body. Shut up! That voice shouted, and then her body uncontrollably rushed down, landing on the ground of the high platform. I admit defeat. Boom! Following Feng Yuan's voice, the attack that Luo Qingtong had been brewing in her hand suddenly exploded beside her. That attack almost brushed past her cheek. The sharp edge even burned the air in the sky. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes at Feng Yuan. Was it her imagination? She seemed to have just seen Feng Yuan's eyes change color. Different pupils? Feng Yuan's eyes actually also have different pupils? Luo Qingtong thought of the secret books related to ocular techniques in the Luo family's secret chamber. Although she knew that ocular technique masters existed in this world, this was the first time Luo Qingtong had met someone with such different pupils. Feng Yuan also had different pupils, so it was no wonder that she would poison the eyes of the original Luo Qingtong. It was obvious that this princess from the Great Yong dynasty did not want anyone to have the same eyes as her. What a pity. Luo Qingtong's eyes drooped. She actually admitted defeat. Otherwise, she would not have let her off so easily. But the future was long. She had plenty of opportunities to slowly play with this princess of Great Yong. It would be very interesting to strip her of her genius halo and noble status bit by bit, right? As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she smiled and put away the attack in her hand. Then she descended casually. I admit defeat. Feng Yuan's heart was full of humiliation and unwillingness. However, she could not control her body at all, and could only lower her head to admit defeat to Luo Qingtong. She did not know why her master would suddenly appear to stop her, but if she used her different pupils, she would not lose to Luo Qingtong. Thinking that she, the dignified princess of Great Yong, had to lower her head to Luo Qingtong, the legitimate daughter of an inferior marquis from a low-ranked country. Feng Yuan's heart was in turmoil, and she was so ashamed that she wanted to die. Good. Luo Qingtong looked at Feng Yuan, raising her eyebrows and saying, since Princess Feng Yuan has admitted defeat, then sign the letter of agreement. In addition, I will not return the corpse of Great Yong's seventh prince. I ask that Great Yong keep to its word and not use this matter to cause trouble in the future. As Luo Qingtong said this, Feng Yuan felt even more humiliated. I know. She clenched her teeth and squeezed out a sentence. She had lost her imperial uncle's corpse, lost the powerful bloodline of Great Yong's imperial family, and still had to sign a 10-year non-aggression agreement with Great Chu. If it weren't for Feng Yuan's mental fortitude being considered tough, he would have definitely fainted from anger. Her only consolation was that even if Luo Qingtong took her imperial uncle's corpse, she could only destroy it to vent her anger. Without Great Yong's secret technique, the imperial bloodline in her imperial uncle's body would not be stolen or lost. As for the 10-year non-aggression agreement, Great Yong could not invade Great Chu, but could she not do it from other places? The Empire of Qin, Great Qi, and so on. Chapter 784. Thinking of this, Feng Yuan suddenly felt a rush of blood in his head. Pah! She angrily threw the letter of credence that had just been signed in front of Luo Qingtong. Then she turned around and said to the people of Great Yong who had rushed in front of her, let's go. The group then left the Chu Palace in a sorry state. Feng Yuan and the seventh prince of Great Yong were so arrogant and determined to win before, but now they were in a sorry state. The group of people were like stray dogs, running away with their tails between their legs under the mocking and disdainful gazes of the people of the Chu Palace. Your Highness! After Feng Yuan and others left, an attendant of the Chu Palace immediately came up to the stage. He picked up the letter of credence that Feng Yuan had thrown on the ground and handed it to Luo Qingtong, saying with a happy expression, Congratulations to your Highness on your victory. The expression and voice of the attendant were indescribably respectful and happy. This young miss of a marquis's household from a low-level family in a low-level country was not an ordinary person. Not to mention her talent that was enough to defeat Great Yong's Princess Feng Yuan, she had now won a 10-year contract for Great Yong for Great Chu. She was the benefactor of the entire Chu sacred dynasty. Not to mention that she was the Princess of Great Chu personally conferred by Empress Dowager Yan Shi, and her grandfather would become the emperor of the Chu royal family. In addition, there was the protection of the Black Field. Who would dare to slight her for all of these reasons? Therefore, the attendant didn't try to hide his words at all, and directly called out. As his words sounded, the people of Great Chu around also seemed to wake up from a dream and directly shouted, "Congratulations to your highness on your victory." Haha. On the stands, the transcendent saint of the Chu sacred dynasty was very happy. He laughed and said, "That's right, congratulations to your highness on your victory." Haha. Ministers of Great Chu, from now on, Luo Qingtong of the Marquis household of the Easternly Kingdom is the Holy Princess of Great Chu. She will be given the title of Holy and the title of Holy Princess. The transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty was extremely happy. Not only had Great Yong's scheme been thwarted, but they had also given Great Chu a 10-year contract of non-aggression. With this agreement, he could continue to cultivate in seclusion with peace of mind. This was all thanks to Luo Qingtong and Luo Tong. He willingly gave her the title of Holy Conferred Princess. When he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his hand. In an instant, a beam of light flew from above the imperial temple of the Great Chu sacred dynasty. With a boom, the 5-colored light entered Luo Qingtong's body. Buzz! Above the holy capital of Great Chu, countless holy bells rang in the ancestral shrine as the heavenly altar offered sacrifices to the heavens, announcing to the world that the Great Chu emperor had conferred the title of princess, and the conferment was established. This was a transcendent saint from the Great Chu sacred dynasty. Naturally, it was not as troublesome to confer the title of Holy Princess as usual. In just an instant, the Great Chu sacred dynasty's edict had spread throughout the holy capital. Great Chu has conferred the title of Holy Princess. His title is Shangning. Following this holy bell edict, the entire holy capital boiled over in an instant. Holy Conferred Princess? Great Chu has conferred the title of Holy Princess? My God, this movement is a transcendent saint from the Great Chu royal family. I don't know which young genius of the Great Chu royal family it is. I have never heard of a young girl in the Great Chu royal family who is qualified to confer the title of Holy Princess. Could it be a genius from a collateral branch? My God! With the title of Holy, one can enjoy the protection of the Great Chu kingdom, the honor of being a half-emperor. Among the 4 dynasties of the eastern region, one can run amok without kneeling or worshipping when seeing a saint. This royal girl from a collateral branch is likely to soar to the sky. Yes. Chapter 785. Cough. Yi Qianming, calm down. In a spacious and gorgeous room, Luo Qingtong was trapped between the man and the bed. One of her hands was pressed against Yi Qianming's chest, and she could feel a burning sensation from her hand. The man's breath seemed to have completely blended with hers. Male pheromones filled the air. Coupled with their current position, one on top of the other, it made the atmosphere even more ambiguous. After Luo Qingtong was conferred the title of Princess Shangning, she handed the letter to Old Master Luo and asked him to give it to the transcendent saint of the Great Chu sacred dynasty. She then prepared to leave the Great Chu imperial palace. However, before she could go far, she was captured by Yi Qianming and brought here. Humph, I'm very calm right now. Yi Qianming narrowed his eyes and looked at the unusually obedient and cute girl in front of him. This woman would only be like this when she felt guilty. She usually had an evil and cunning look. Then let me go first? Luo Qingtong's eyes turned slightly. Seeing this man like this, she knew that he must be angry again. But she had been very well behaved recently. She had been busy raising her grandfather's strength when she had nothing to do. She hadn't done anything bad, right? Why was this man like this? Suddenly, Luo Qingtong thought of the bet she had with the heavenly doctor in the Blackfield main city. At that time, she remembered that the other party had asked her to leave this man if she lost. Oh no! This man couldn't be angry because of this, right? Luo Qingtong thought of this and suddenly felt guilty. She knew that this man would be unhappy. At that time, she didn't want to agree to the heavenly doctor's bet. Wasn't it because the temptation of the square immortal cauldron was too great and she was confident that she wouldn't lose? After all, she had already fought with the other party once in the Great Chu imperial palace. If the other party hadn't made a prompt decision, she might not have had the chance to go to the Blackfield main city to find trouble with her. Under such circumstances, the other party had bet with her on the square immortal cauldron. It was completely giving her a treasure. Of course, she couldn't help but agree. Luo Qingtong thought of this and suddenly felt embarrassed. Great, this man came back to settle the score with her. What if I say no? Yi Qianming narrowed his cold eyes and looked at the young girl who had her head lowered. This woman, when others said that they would bet with her and asked her to leave him after she lost, she really agreed. Yi Qianming gritted his teeth as he thought about it. He suddenly bent down and bit the girl's tender and slender neck. Then, he was tempted by the fresh and smooth feeling. In the next second, the light in his eyes instantly darkened. That bite, which was originally filled with anger, also became lighter. It slowly gnawed its way down. Hiss! Luo Qingtong almost jumped up because of Yi Qianming's bite. Then, the man's actions changed. Luo Qingtong froze for a moment before breaking free from Yi Qianming's embrace. Bang! Yi Qianming's eyes were burning. He raised his hand and grabbed the girl who had escaped from his arms, pressing her under his body again. You can't win against me. He looked at the beautiful girl who was like a flower under him, and the light in his eyes darkened to the extreme. This time, he didn't want her to escape. Is that so? Luo Qingtong looked at him and suddenly smiled slyly. I don't think so. Chapter 786. Luo Qingtong said as she licked her lips. The smile on her lips was abnormally evil and enchanting. In the next second, she moved. Aha! Following Luo Qingtong's movement, Yi Qianming suddenly groaned. Then Luo Qingtong suddenly turned over and sat on him. How is it? I said I can win, right? Luo Qingtong's expression was abnormally enchanting and evil. She placed her right hand under Yi Qianming's lower abdomen. She held the man's huge member in her hand and gently moved it rhythmically. The girl's eyes were curved and the smile on her lips was indescribably evil. I'm right? Luo Qingtong leaned over and breathed in Yi Qianming's ear. The expression on her face was demonic and evil to the extreme. Coupled with her peerlessly beautiful face, she was like a demon that bewitched people's hearts. Anyone who saw her would hate that they could not hold her in their hands and take her for themselves. This demon. Yi Qianming gritted his teeth and groaned as he watched Luo Qingtong leave. He didn't expect that Luo Qingtong would use such a method to escape from his hands, so he didn't put up any defenses. In fact, he didn't have any resistance against Luo Qingtong. Not to mention that the other party used such a method to make him lose his resistance. This woman was really thinking of the feeling of his huge member being moved by the other party and then thinking of Luo Qingtong's evil and crimson face. Yi Qianming's heart was burning and his lips were slightly raised. Let's see how long you can hide. That woman would sooner or later face up to her feelings. Swoosh! Luo Qingtong rushed out of the room and rushed out. She found that she was still in the Great Chu Palace. Yi Qianming was so daring that after kidnapping her, he ran to a remote palace in the Great Chu Palace. He wasn't afraid of being discovered. Thinking of how she used such a method to take him down, that man would be very angry. Luo Qingtong suddenly coughed softly. She decided to leave for a few days to lie low and wait for that man's anger to subside. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong suddenly thought of the corpse of Great Yong's seventh prince in her hands. It just so happened that she wanted to extract the bloodline power from it. She would take this opportunity to go out and hide for a few days. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong rushed out. She directly returned to her spirit ship and picked up Little Pig, who was thrown there by Yi Qianming. Let's go! As she spoke, she drove the spirit ship out of the Chu Imperial Palace and left the sacred capital of the Chu dynasty. What's the matter with you? Why are you fleeing? Little Pig looked at her, blinked his little eyes. Wasn't this woman taken away by that man? Why did she come back? And why was she in such a hurry? In front of that man, who would dare to cause trouble for her? Cough! Luo Qingtong coughed softly. She didn't say that she had tricked Yi Qianming again. She only said, didn't you say that you can extract the bloodline power from Great Yong's seventh prince? How do you do it? She didn't think that the bloodline power was so easy to extract. There must be some restrictions. Otherwise, Feng Wan and the others wouldn't have let it go so easily. They must think that they couldn't extract it. Just throw it into the square immortal cauldron. Little Pig said. That immortal cauldron can refine everything. But it requires a special method to use it. Others may not have a way, but you should have no problem, right? If not, it wouldn't let her snatch the corpse. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. She indeed had no problem. Since that's the case, let's go there. Chapter 787. Jiuwu Mountain Range. Tianxia Valley. Firstly, there was no one there to disturb Luo Qingtong, making it convenient for her to extract the bloodline power from the 7th Prince of Yong. Secondly, grandfather Luo was about to marry Empress Dowager Yan Shi. It was impossible for Luo Qingtong not to prepare a congratulatory gift. The Tianxia Valley contained the treasury of the Tianyu royal family that she had placed there. The good stuff inside could be used to refine pills as a congratulatory gift for her grandfather. Thirdly, Yi Qianxian was nowhere to be found. Luo Qingtong thought as she turned the boat around and headed towards Dongli Kingdom. While Luo Qingtong was leaving the holy capital of Great Chu, Feng Yuan and the others, who had fled pathetically, were resting in a city on the border of the Great Yong dynasty. Master! In the luxurious palace, Feng Yuan ordered everyone to retreat. He gritted his teeth and said, "Why did you make me admit defeat?" Just thinking of those things that happened in the Great Chu Imperial Palace before, Feng Yuan felt unbearably humiliated. She was not supposed to lose. As long as she used her other pupils, Luo Qingtong would not be her match. Why did her master stop her? Let Luo Qingtong be on top of her? Feng Yuan was very unwilling. Humph. You had completely lost your mind at that time. If I let you use your other pupils, you would definitely kill Luo Qingtong. Do you think you will have a chance to survive in front of the Blackfield's underworld revered? A voice in her mind scolded angrily. I helped you admit defeat to save you. Do you think you have the ability to escape from the Blackfield's underworld revered? If you can do it, I will not stop you. The anger in this voice was not concealed at all. God knows he was also frightened. With the Blackfield's underworld revered covering for Luo Qingtong, if Feng Yuan really killed Luo Qingtong, then they would all die there and be buried with Luo Qingtong. At that time, even he would not be spared. That was why he had rushed out to stop Feng Yuan without caring about anything else. Feng Yuan was speechless. At that time, she did want to kill Luo Qingtong. Why was it that Luo Qingtong and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye could get what she couldn't get? Let's not talk about the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, but what about Luo Qingtong? Just because the Luo family had a relationship with the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, she was able to follow them and obtain the protection of the Blackfield's Mingzun? What did she do to deserve this? What's more, the daughter of the first wife of a low-level family from a low-level country was actually not inferior to her in terms of talent and strength. At that time, Feng Yuan had completely lost his mind after being crushed by someone of the same level. Humph! The voice coldly snorted and said, Feng Yuan, you really disappoint me. You have strange pupils and your talent is extraordinary. In the future, you will surely be an important candidate to fight for the mandate of heaven, or even a man of heaven. In your current situation, do you even have the slightest bit of demeanor of a man of heaven? A mere daughter of a small country, her talent and strength are only a bit better than yours at this stage. As for what will happen in the future, I don't even know. On the road of cultivation, the higher you go, the more difficult it is. That Luo Qingtong might be fierce now, but she might not be so in the future. As for you, you are a peerless proud son of heaven who will soon step into the saint realm. What are you afraid of her for? This is only a competition where one's strength is suppressed. So what if she defeats you? If you have the time to be jealous of her, you might as well think about how to increase your strength and step into the saint realm. You might be able to compete for a transcendence spot. At that time, you will be able to sweep away most of the powerhouses of the True Spill continent. Are you afraid that the Blackfield's Mingzun won't be able to see your excellence? Chapter 788. That voice reprimanded harshly. Feng Yuan bit her lips as she listened. Yes, master. I understand. Feng Yuan was truly unwilling to give up. That was why she kept finding trouble with Luo Qingtong and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Now that she heard her master's words, she seemed to have come to a realization. That's right. No matter how outstanding Luo Qingtong and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye were, they might not be able to compare to her. As long as her strength could continue to increase, would she still be afraid that Mingzun would not be able to see her? She was really blinded by the fact that Blackfield's Mingzun doted on the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. That was why she did this series of things. It's good that you have come to a realization. That voice said with satisfaction. Remember, you are the possessor of different pupils. In the future, you will definitely be different. There is no need to lower yourself to the level of some petty people. Even if Luo Qingtong and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye's medical skills and talent are better than yours now, they will not be able to compare to you in the future. In the future, you will be the one chosen by the heavens. You will not be on the same path as them. Master, you always talk about the heavens. What is the heavens? What does it have to do with different pupils? Feng Wan touched her eyes and asked with a gloomy gaze. If she did not know that different pupils were the symbol of the heavens, she would not have decisively destroyed Luo Qingtong's eyes after knowing that she had different pupils. One must know that she was a dignified princess of Great Yong. Why would she go so far as to make things difficult for the legitimate daughter of a marquis of a low-level country? Even if Luo Qingtong was Yu Wenma's fiancé at that time, it was not worth her doing anything. She was only afraid that her different pupils would threaten her. Feng Wan's gaze had already changed. Her eyes were now purplish-green. That pair of green eyes was actually 70 to 80% similar to the Luo Qingtong of the past. Feng Wan's eyes were clearly darker, faintly showing signs of transitioning to purple. You don't need to ask about this. In short, you only need to know that different pupils are the symbol of the heavens. When different pupils appear, heaven and earth are born. This is a prophecy of heaven and earth. The voice said. If it wasn't for Feng Wan's extraordinary pupils and outstanding talent, with his high level of vision and strength, how could he have taken him as a disciple and guided him in his cultivation? In his eyes, this true spill continent was nothing at all. Master, is there a difference in strength between those with different pupils? Or are they all the same? Feng Wan asked cautiously. In the past, this wisp of smoke would not tell her these things. Using today's matter as an excuse, he could ask about it. Humph. Originally, I didn't want to tell you these things right now. But since you lack confidence, I'll tell you. There is indeed a hierarchy between the different pupils. Your purplish-green eyes can be considered above average. It can be considered a top-notch eye color. The purer the eye color, the more ocular techniques one can learn. The faster one can learn them, and the stronger the power one can unleash. As the voice spoke, Feng Wan suddenly asked, what if a person is born with all the ocular techniques? That's impossible. Haha. The voice laughed and said, all eye techniques must be cultivated before they can unleash their full power. If there is someone in this world who is born with all the ocular techniques and can use them perfectly, then you don't need to compete for the heavens. Chapter 789. However, this is impossible. You don't need to think too much about it. Feng Wan immediately nodded as the voice spoke. However, in her heart, she felt somewhat uncomfortable because she wasn't the one blessed by the heavens. If only she knew all the ocular techniques from the start. Then she wouldn't need to fight for the mandate of heaven and could directly become the mandate of heaven. Although she didn't know what the mandate of heaven represented, from that heavenly prophecy, Feng Wan could tell how powerful the mandate of heaven was. Heaven and earth would be born when the strange eyes appeared? Everything in the world depended on her to be born. Then wouldn't the mandate of heaven be even more powerful than the heavenly Tao? As Feng Wan thought about it, she felt even more uncomfortable. Fortunately, although she wasn't that kind of person, no one else was. When the time came to fight for the mandate of heaven, there would still be a place for her. As Feng Wan thought about it, she felt a bit better. Master, after I return, I will enter the Great Yong Sacred Academy to cultivate. She said to the wisp of smoke. I'm determined to win the 4 regions competition half a year from now. At that time, Luo Qingtong and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye will be nothing to me. Feng Wan was brimming with confidence. Moreover, she heard that Luo Qingtong had also entered the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. As she thought about it, Feng Wan suddenly sneered. Previously, she had indeed thought wrongly. Why would she be angry with such a person? She didn't know how strong she would be in the future. Moreover, once she entered the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, there would be many people waiting to receive her. That Yu Wenma had attracted many peach blossoms. As Feng Wan thought about it, she immediately ordered people to spread the news that Luo Qingtong was Yu Wenma's fiancé. Of course, She deliberately concealed the fact that Luo Qingtong had become the sacred princess of Great Chu. She would let those people from the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin deal with her. Yuan Ma didn't want others to know that he had such a fiancé. How could that be? I will help Luo Qingtong. Let her become famous in the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. As Feng Yuan thought of this, he suddenly smiled gracefully. Come, let's return to Great Yong. Luo Qingtong didn't know that Feng Yuan had spread the news that she was Yuan Ma's fiancé to the whole Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. But even if she knew, she wouldn't care. He had originally planned to break off the engagement after going to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Feng Yuan's actions had saved her a lot of trouble. Otherwise, no one would know that she was Yuan Ma's fiancé. If she went to cancel the engagement herself, people would think that she was purposely trying to make her presence known. Luo Qingtong didn't know about Feng Yuan's actions. If she knew, she would definitely thank her. As for enemies, Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid of having too many enemies. It wasn't like she hadn't experienced the days of being the enemy of the entire world. Feng Yuan's methods were completely child's play to her. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was studying the usage of the square immortal cauldron. Using Little Pig, she found out that the square immortal cauldron could not only refine pills, but could also refine all things. It was indeed a divine cauldron. Luo Qingtong thought and directly used her eye technique. The bloody light in her eyes flickered, and she quickly analyzed the effects and usage of the divine cauldron. However, she could only use the lowest level of techniques. With her current strength, she couldn't use the higher level techniques. But this was already enough. After all, the corpse of the seventh prince that she wanted to refine was only in the sage realm. The techniques that Luo Qingtong analyzed were completely enough. Chapter 790. Luo Qingtong tried to activate the flames in the square immortal cauldron and quickly determined the method to extract the bloodline power from Great Yong's seventh prince's body and how to use it. Little Pig clicked his tongue as he watched from the side. This perverted woman actually saw through everything. Even a god wouldn't be this powerful. This is a divine cauldron. Although she could only use the lowest level of those techniques. But in a situation where he didn't know anything, he knew how to use it after getting it. Those who didn't know would think that she was the one who refined this cauldron. The geniuses of your generation must be very miserable. They would be crushed into ashes. Little Pig said. Then he added, of course that man is an exception. That man was already an inhuman genius. In the end, this woman was also an inhuman. These two people just had to be together. How could they let others live? Little Pig observed a moment of silence for the others. Luo Qingtong couldn't be bothered with him. However, when she heard him mention Yi Qianxian, the corner of her lips couldn't help but twitch. Cuff. I wonder how much of that man's anger has subsided after these few days? Luo Qingtong pondered for a moment. Then, she looked at the 9 phoenix ring in her hand and wondered if she should use it to check on him. It had been a long time since the last time, and her consciousness had almost recovered. This time, she should be able to go over again. Luo Qingtong asked Little Pig to keep an eye on the spirit ship and prevent it from going off the wrong path. Then, she immersed her consciousness into the 9 phoenix ring. Humph. In the city lord's mansion of the Black Field, Yi Qianxian sat in front of a gold-rimmed black wooden table. He was reviewing the accumulated documents in the Black Field. They were waiting for him to come back and sign them. Sensing the vibration of the 10-sided dragon ring on his left ring finger, he narrowed his eyes coldly. However, he didn't do anything. Luo Qingtong had locked him in the palace. Although she had called Bei Qing and Feng Yu over before she left, Luo Qingtong still had not found him. However, Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth. What was he like at that time? This woman is really... Yi Qianxian took a deep breath and suppressed the bulging veins on his forehead. Ever since he met this woman, the number of times he had been humiliated and angered was 10 times more than before. Pachi. Luo Qingtong fell out of the space of consciousness of the 10-sided dragon ring. However, she was experienced this time and turned into a mini loli as soon as she came out. Yi Qianxian. She looked at Yi Qianxian, who had his head buried in the documents, and walked over with her short legs with a smile. Yi Qianxian narrowed his cold eyes and looked straight ahead as if she didn't exist. Yi Qianxian. Luo Qingtong walked back and forth in front of him, swaying back and forth. Yi Qianxian refused to look at her. His face was cold as he went through the documents. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The black weasel hairbrush swept around Luo Qingtong. Yi Qianxian's expression was cold. Because the man was alone, he had already taken off the dark gold mask on his face, revealing his devilishly handsome face that would make men and gods jealous. His long black hair was not tied into a crown, perhaps because it was casual. It just hung slightly to one side and was tied up with a gold and silver hairband. The man at this moment, from the cold and icy Ming Zun, looked a little unruly and scholarly. It added some gentleness to him and softened the coldness of his face. The Yi Qianxian now did not look like the ruthless Ming Zun of the Black Field, who held the power of life and death in his hands. Instead, he looked like a rich young master who lived in luxury. He was elegant, noble, and gentle. Yi Qianxian. Chapter 791. Pa! She hugged Yi Qianya's weasel hairbrush. If you ignore me, I won't let you write. Luo Qingtong hugged the weasel hairbrush with her small arms and legs. Her whole body was plastered to the weasel hairbrush. It looked like a huge doll was hanging on the weasel hairbrush. Yi Qianxian's hand holding the brush paused and he raised his head slightly. Just when Luo Qingtong thought he was going to talk to her, the man raised his other hand, grabbed her by the back of her neck, and lifted her off the weasel hairbrush. I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving. Luo Qingtong hugged the weasel hairbrush and refused to let go. However, how could her small arms and legs be stronger than Yi Qianxian's? In the end, she was pulled out by him. Luo Qingtong saw that she couldn't win against him, so she immediately picked up the document on his desk. She couldn't hold the brush, but she could at least hold the document, right? Let's see how he's going to sign without the document. If he had the ability, he could pull it from her hands. She wouldn't be responsible if he tore it apart. Yi Qianxian looked at her coldly. Just when Luo Qingtong thought he would definitely talk to her this time, Yi Qianxian put down the weasel hairbrush in his hand and strode out with his long legs. F***CK. Luo Qingtong stood among the pile of documents and saw him get up. She immediately chased after him. Yi Qianxian. She ran with her short legs and called out. She fell with a bang. Just as she was about to hit the door in front of her, a large hand descended from the sky and caught her. Yi Qianxian. Luo Qingtong's eyes curved when she saw the man's cold face. His handsome face didn't hide his cold face at all. She knew that this man couldn't bear to see her get hurt. She hugged Yi Qianxian's large hand and rubbed it twice. Mwah! What was moral integrity? She was now Luo Xueqi. She didn't understand moral integrity. Little dolls should be used to act cute. Yi Qianxian looked at her with a cold face. He wanted to shake her off, but he was afraid that she would get hurt because of her small appearance. It wouldn't be good if it affected her body. After all, Luo Qingtong wasn't as strong as he was when he became Little Ming Zun. However, if he didn't shake her off, this woman's petite, cute, and obedient appearance really made him unable to harden his heart. If this woman was as obedient as she was when she was in her body, she was cunning. Yi Qianxian's face was cold, and he continued to walk out. His sleeves hung down and covered Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong poked her head out of his sleeve. Master. When Yi Qianxian came out, Bei Qing and Feng Yu bowed to him. They lowered their heads and saw Luo Qingtong under Yi Qianxian's sleeves. Evil! Bei Qing almost screamed when she saw Luo Qingtong. Feng Yu covered her mouth and dragged her away. Didn't this husky see that his master was pretending not to see the evil doctor with a cold face? If he screamed, he would be in trouble later. Feng Yu thought so and dragged Bei Qing away. Before leaving, she didn't forget to report to Yi Qianxian. Master, the meal is ready. It's in the side hall. Bei Qing and I have something to do, so we'll leave first. The two of them ran away. Yi Qianxian looked at their backs and didn't say anything. When he was with Luo Qingtong, he didn't like outsiders. Especially now. Yi Qianxian entered the side hall with a cold face. The meal was already set on the table. There were plates of extremely sumptuous food. Yi Qianxian looked at it indifferently and coldly. He sat down and prepared to eat. Although he wasn't hungry, he didn't want to bother with Luo Qingtong. Chapter 792. What are you doing? He gritted his teeth and looked at Luo Qingtong. The latter was lying in his bowl and was even hugging his chopsticks. Why didn't he know that this woman was so shameless? You're finally paying attention to me? When Luo Qingtong heard him talking to her, she immediately got up from the bowl and threw herself into the man's arms. Yi Qianxian, are you not angry anymore? Luo Qingtong blinked and looked at Yi Qianxian. After shrinking, Luo Qingtong raised her head and looked at people. She looked like a beautiful little loli and was very cute. Humph! Yi Qianxian snorted. Before he could say anything, Luo Qingtong had already leaned over and kissed him on the lips. In the end, he even licked it. Don't be angry, okay? She hugged the man's extremely handsome face and nuzzled her face against it. Luo Qingtong was prepared to be shameless to the end. This body was so cute right now. It would be a waste of resources not to use it to soften this man's heart. Yi Qianxian's face was held by her small hands. The little loli's hands were warm and soft to the touch. Especially when this woman was kissing his lips without any integrity. Yi Qianxian's eyes darkened. Did this woman think that he couldn't do anything to her now that she looked like a little loli? He lifted Luo Qingtong from his arms. With a pop, a burst of energy suddenly emerged from his body and rushed into the 10-directional dragon ring on his left ring finger. Through the connection between the Shifang dragon ring and the 9 nether phoenix ring, Luo Qingtong's body suddenly seemed to rush into a power. She opened her eyes slightly. In the next second, her body changed from a little loli back to her normal form. Then Yi Qianxian's body pressed down. Oh! Luo Qingtong raised her head and accepted the man's kiss. In the next second, she retaliated. Their lips and tongues were entangled together, and the entire room was filled with an ambiguous and sweet atmosphere. After the kiss, Luo Qingtong licked her lips and looked at the man in front of her whose eyes were getting darker and colder. She leaned over and kissed the corner of his eyes. Don't be mad. Yi Qianxian looked at her darkly without saying a word. Pachi! The power in Luo Qingtong's body didn't last long, and she returned to her little lowly form. She clung to the man's neck and hung from his body. Don't be angry, don't be angry. She rubbed against the man's Adam's apple coquettishly and nibbled on his Adam's apple from time to time. Yi Qianxian was infuriated by her. He raised his hand and pulled her off his body. His voice was hoarse and gloomy. Stop playing with fire. This woman, if she had the ability, why didn't she try flirting with him in her original form? Where are you? Where are you? Yi Qianxian's fingers gently rubbed Luo Qingtong's lips. The girl's lips were pink and delicate, like flower petals. Yi Qianxian's eyes darkened. I'm refining pills for Grandpa outside. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned slightly. She still didn't know if this man's anger had subsided or not. She'd better take it easy. She'd come back when Grandpa got married. Humph! Yi Qianxian snorted softly. He saw through her thoughts and didn't ask any more questions. Anyway, this woman would definitely come back when Grandpa Luo got married. If it wasn't for this, how could he be so calm when this woman ran away after setting her eyes on him? Chapter 793. This woman was normally as cunning and evil as a fox, but at the critical moment, she was like a rabbit. However, Yi Qianxian wasn't prepared to force Luo Qingtong. Take your time. One day, this woman would accept his feelings and face her own heart. While Luo Qingtong was rushing towards Heavenly Evil Valley, Yu Wenma was sitting in a simple and spacious courtyard within the Empire of Qin's sacred courtyard. He had just learned from his teacher that his Yu Wenma family had been destroyed. The royal family of Tianyu Empire had been completely annihilated. Even the Tianyu Empire had been seized by others. The throne had changed hands. However, he was completely powerless to do anything. His teacher's words resounded in Yu Wenma's mind. Emor, I know you are unwilling. You are my most outstanding disciple. Even in the Empire of Qin's sacred courtyard, you are a rare genius seed. Teacher should have told you about the destruction of Tianyu's royal family earlier. But when you came back from a Yuan opening mystic realm, you immediately went into seclusion. It is important for you to increase your strength, but the destruction of Tianyu's royal family is a foregone conclusion. Teacher decided to conceal this matter so as not to disturb your breakthrough. Emor, the one who destroyed Tianyu's royal family, is an honored guest of the Black Field. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye is one of the most popular figures in the entire True Spill continent. Her medical skills and alchemy skills are amazing. Even the Sacred Courtyard's alchemy Saint Master would have to admire the medicinal liquids she refines. Every bottle of medicine that she concocted was perfectly concocted. Extreme realm. Not only that, but she is also an alchemist with the Black Field backing her. I don't know how your royal family offended her, but with the Black Field there is no way for you to take revenge. If you listen to your teacher, then forget about this matter and focus on your cultivation. With the Empire of Qin's Sacred Courtyard there, the Black Field won't come looking for trouble with you. Wait until your strength increases in the future, then you will have the right to speak. His teacher's words resounded in his mind. But Yu Wenma was unwilling. He had always boasted that he was the pride of the heavens, and that he was not inferior to the disciples of the major forces and families in the Empire of Qin dynasty. As long as he was given the chance, he would definitely soar into the sky. But now, his family had been annihilated and his empire had been seized, but there was nothing he could do. What kind of humiliation was this? Yu Wenma's life in the Tianyu Empire had always been smooth. He was a genius that everyone looked up to. His journey to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin had been smooth sailing as well. Apart from the humiliation he suffered in the sub-city of the Black Field, he hadn't suffered any major setbacks. Thinking of this, Yu Wenma suddenly clenched his fists. That incident in the Black Field was the biggest setback in his smooth-sailing life. It was also the biggest humiliation he had ever suffered. And the person who brought him such unbearable humiliation was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Was it because of this that they attacked the Tianyu Empire? After all, with their identities as disciples of the Holy Academy and the Black Field's intelligence network, it was very easy for them to find out his identity and origin. Was it because the evil Dr. Ghost Eye didn't humiliate him at that time, so he took it out on the royal family of Tianyu? If that was the case, it would explain why the royal father and the others, who were always cautious, suddenly provoked the evil Dr. Ghost Eye and attracted the hatred of the Killer Clan. Chapter 794. What he didn't know was that Tianyu's imperial family was exterminated because they wanted to control Luo Qingtong. They brought this upon themselves. However, the imperial family thought that he was deeply in love with Luo Qingtong, so they deliberately hid this matter from him. Thus, Yu Wenma, who didn't know the truth, misunderstood. Thinking that it might be because of him that they attacked Tianyu's imperial family. Yu Wenma's heart was filled with hatred. He clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the side. Senior brother. The junior sister looked worriedly at Yu Wenma, who was in the pavilion in the courtyard. She said, Senior brother, don't ruin your body. Although evil Dr. Ghost Eye has Black Field as his backer, it's not like we don't have a chance at revenge. Half a year from now, as long as senior brother can stand out in the Eastern Domain and enter the 4-domain gathering, you'll definitely be recognized by the experts there. At that time, senior brother's strength will increase, and you'll be able to find trouble with evil Dr. Ghost Eye. As she said this, Yu Wenma suddenly moved. That's right, although evil Dr. Ghost Eye was protected by Black Field, as long as his status and strength increased, he would still have a chance at revenge. Most importantly, if he continued to be dispirited because of this, he really wouldn't be able to take revenge. Thinking of this, Yu Wenma suddenly made some movements. Little junior sister, you're right, he said in a hoarse voice. I really should pull myself together and work hard to increase my strength. Saying this, he raised his hand and grabbed the pendant hanging around his neck. It was a half-moon-shaped jade pendant. It was completely transparent and embellished with a crescent moon. He didn't know what this jade pendant was made of. At first glance, it didn't look any different from ordinary jade pendants. However, Yu Wenma knew that this jade pendant's origin was extraordinary. All these years, if it weren't for this jade pendant, his strength wouldn't have improved so much. His title as the #1 genius of Tianyu Empire came mostly from this jade pendant. Yu Wenma was born with a cold illness. It was an illness that came from his mother's womb. When he was just born, he almost died. Even if he was later saved by Luo Qingtong's mother, it was already a great fortune for him to be able to live a healthy life. How could he have more talent and strength than ordinary geniuses? All of this was because of this jade pendant on his body. Back then, when his parents saw Luo Qingtong's mother's extraordinary medical skills, They arranged a marriage between him and Luo Qingtong so that if his cold illness flared up again, there would be someone to save him. After all, he was the only son's father's most. But who would have thought that this marriage zest was Ses8TTS the #1 geniuses too? Even after he came to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin, his strength and talent weren't inferior to those geniuses here at all. Everyone said that he was arrogant and thought he wasn't inferior to those geniuses in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. But they didn't know that his arrogance was completely traceable. Luo Qingtong's mother's identity was extraordinary. Thinking of the words he eavesdropped when he was a child, Yu Wenma's eyes turned cold. He would definitely carry out his marriage with Luo Qingtong to the end. Especially now that the royal family of Tianyu had been destroyed, he had to seize this marriage with Luo Qingtong even more. Chapter 795. What did a mere true spill continent count for? Even that evil doctor, Ghost Eye, was nothing. He would definitely avenge Tianyu's royal family. Even if evil Dr. Ghost Eye had the support of the Black Field, it would still be the same. But before that, he had to teach the Ling family, who had stolen the throne of Tianyu's royal family, a lesson. Thinking this, Yu Wenma sneered. Did they think that just because they followed evil Dr. Ghost Eye, he couldn't touch them? Yes, he couldn't touch them now. He couldn't even stop them from stealing the throne of Tianyu Empire. But he could still teach them a lesson and humiliate them. There were also the Ling family siblings. He heard that they had also entered the Tianyu Branch Academy. Thinking of the news he had obtained, the sneer on Yu Wenma's face became even more obvious. As for Luo Qingtong, who had also entered the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy, he didn't care about her at all. Stupid woman, she didn't even know that she was being used as a shield and a sword. Yu Wenma absolutely didn't believe that Luo Qingtong could enter the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy as the top student of the Tianyu Branch Academy. He didn't know how many tricks were involved in this exam. And he heard that the Ling family siblings called her boss? He also heard that she had defeated a Sage Realm powerhouse in the Tianyu Branch Academy? This was simply ridiculous. Even a fantasy story wouldn't work like this. The biggest possibility was that the Ling family had been ordered by evil Dr. Ghost Eye to use Luo Qingtong as a shield and a sword to deal with him. Unfortunately, they were wrong. He didn't want to marry anyone other than Luo Qingtong, not because he had deep feelings for her. If they wanted to use that woman to deal with him, then the final result would only be to humiliate themselves. Luo Qingtong had better know her place. Don't be so stupid as to think that she was the only one who could provoke him. Otherwise, besides the marriage, he wouldn't give her any face. If it weren't for her mother's identity, with Luo Qingtong's talent and strength, she wouldn't even have the qualifications to be his concubine. Thinking of this, Yu Wenma coldly ordered someone to call his supporters from the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin over. Many of those people were disciples of great clans in the sacred dynasty of the Empire of Qin. It was impossible for them to change the court's decision. It was even more impossible for him to go against Blackfield and evil Dr. Ghost Eye for him. However, it was still possible for them to make things difficult for the Ling family. As for the Ling siblings, naturally, he would treat them well. Yu Wenmo's lips curled into a sneer. Luo Qingtong's consciousness returned to her body after her power was exhausted. Jiu Wu Mountain Range. Heavenly Evil Valley. Luo Qingtong steered the spirit boat all the way in without any hindrance. The people of the Heavenly Evil Valley, along with the Luo family's Iron Army, had been sent to the far west desolate region by her, Su Yu. At this moment, the Heavenly Evil Valley was empty. Luo Qingtong went straight to the place where she had placed the treasury of the Tianyu royal family. Setting up a formation, she began to extract the bloodline power from the 7th prince of the Great Yong dynasty. Swoosh! Luo Qingtong threw out the square immortal cauldron. In an instant, the cauldron expanded with the wind. In an instant, it turned into a huge cauldron that was dozens of meters tall. Luo Qingtong pointed her finger, and the 7th prince of Yong's body flew up and was thrown into the cauldron. Boom! Luo Qingtong activated the square immortal cauldron according to the method that she had analyzed with her eye technique. The cauldron instantly changed its appearance. After Luo Qingtong used the analysis method, the bronze cauldron instantly changed its appearance. The color of its body turned silver, and the sun, moon, and stars on it turned into a pattern of fish, insects and birds. Chapter 796. Luo Qingtong looked at this scene in shock. When she practiced these techniques alone, this scene did not appear. This square divine cauldron was really extraordinary. She did not know if that heavenly doctor knew that she had lost to such a treasure. Feng Yuan did not know that Luo Qingtong had activated the true function of the square divine cauldron. However, when the seventh prince's corpse was smelted by the square divine cauldron, she felt a sharp pain in her heart. Although it was only for a moment, it still caused her expression to change. Bas! Feng Yuan's expression changed. In the holy capital of Great Yong, above the heavenly temple, a wail suddenly sounded. A faintly discernible spiritual energy dragon that ordinary people could not see was occupying the heavenly temple. Its head was held high, and the dragon's body was coiled up as it disappeared into the heavenly temple. Dragon of Destiny! What's going on? The Emperor's dragon aura is wailing. The fate of Great Yong has been stolen. What happened? Following the commotion in the heavenly temple, many experts of Great Yong's royal family were alarmed. The loss of bloodline power was a big deal. Not to mention that the fate of Great Yong's royal family represented the fate of Great Yong dynasty. The loss of their bloodline power meant that the fate of Great Yong was also reduced. This fate of Great Yong's royal family was not to be underestimated. It was directly related to the future development and prosperity of the Great Yong dynasty and the royal family. Seeing this dragon of destiny wail, the entire royal family of Great Yong was instantly shaken. As for Feng Yuan, when he saw the dragon of providence that appeared, his expression became extremely unsightly. That was the manifestation of the dragon aura that represented the fate of Great Yong's royal family. At the same time, it was also the symbol of their royal bloodline. Now that it had appeared with a wail, it was obvious that the bloodline power of Great Yong's royal family had been lost. What was going on? Without Great Yong's unique method, it was absolutely impossible for anyone to steal the bloodline power of Great Yong's royal family. Feng Yuan instantly thought of the corpse of the seventh prince of Great Yong. Could it be that the bloodline power in seventh uncle's corpse had been stolen? But how did the other party do it? She gritted her teeth. At this moment, the voice of the green smoke in her body sounded. Looks like I've underestimated that evil Dr. Ghost Eye's ability. That four-sided immortal cauldron fell into her hands, so she must have seen through its usage. Your seventh imperial uncle's corpse must have been refined by her using the square immortal cauldron. What? Feng Yuan fiercely bit his lips. Could it be that it's not just a cauldron for refining pills? No matter how powerful it was, it should only be a cauldron for refining pills. Who told you that it's just a cauldron for alchemy? That wisp of green smoke scolded her. Since it's a divine cauldron, it's naturally not something an ordinary cauldron can compare to. That's why I said earlier that you made a big mistake. However, although she was able to see some of the uses of the divine cauldron, that should be the end of it. Think of a way to get that cauldron back as soon as possible. The things hidden in there are not ordinary things that can be compared to. Yes. Feng Yuan agreed, but the nails in her hand dug into the palm of her hand. That divine cauldron was actually so powerful. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have used that divine cauldron to gamble with the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Now, not only had she lost that divine cauldron, she had also stolen the bloodline power in seventh uncle's body. This matter was so big that even if she was a princess, she would still be punished. Just as Feng Yuan was thinking this, a servant girl hurriedly came to report. Not good. Your Highness, the ancestor is furious and summons you to the palace. Chapter 797. A golden draconic aura emerged from the square immortal cauldron in front of her. Mixed with the bloodline aura extracted from the seventh prince's body, it circled around in front of Luo Qingtong. What is this? Luo Qingtong's finger gently wrapped around the golden draconic aura. Haha, this is the Great Yong dynasty's draconic aura, the symbol of a great dynasty's fortune. I didn't expect that this square immortal cauldron would extract a trace of Great Yong's fortune while extracting the bloodline power from the seventh prince's body. That's right. This seventh prince is an important figure in the Great Yong imperial family, and his strength is not weak. The loss of the bloodline power in his body means that the Great Yong imperial family's strength is affected, and their fortune is weakened. Naturally, a trace of the nation's fortune is affected. I didn't expect that this square immortal cauldron would be able to extract that trace of fortune from his body. as expected of the divine king's cauldron. Little Pig was so happy that it jumped on her shoulder. That Princess Feng Yuan will definitely be angered to death. It covered its round and tender belly and said, "She must have thought that you wouldn't be able to obtain the bloodline power in the seventh prince's body. Therefore, although she was unwilling to leave, she didn't think too much about it. Now that the great Yong dynasty's fortune has been lost, she must be regretting it to death." Little Pig was overjoyed. She went for wool but came home shorn. She coveted the throne of Great Chu and wanted to deal with your grandmother. Great. Now she's the one being dealt with. Losing this trace of the nation's fortune, the Great Chu imperial family will definitely be furious. That saintly conferred princess will also suffer great misfortune. Hearing his words, Luo Qingtong smiled faintly. She was naturally willing to see her enemy suffer misfortune. In that case, I have to thank that divine heavenly doctor, Luo Qingtong said with a smile. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been able to obtain this divine cauldron, nor would she have been able to extract the bloodline power from the seventh prince's body, let alone this trace of Great Yong's fortune. From the looks of it, this rotten peach blossom that Yi Qianxian had attracted was not really a problem. Luo Qingtong said. She raised her hand and put the golden dragon qi mixed with the bloodline power into her waist ring. When grandfather marries Empress Dowager Yan Shi, I'll send this wisp of Great Yong's destiny and this ball of bloodline power as a congratulatory gift. Luo Qingtong wouldn't let anyone look down on old Master Luo. The reason why the latter married Empress Dowager Yan Shi was obviously to make up for the regrets and misses of the past few decades. Even if her grandmother wasn't Empress Dowager Yan Shi, it would still be the same. However, it was inevitable that some people would think that they had gotten lucky and climbed up the social ladder. Luo Qingtong naturally wouldn't let this happen. On the day of old Master Luo's wedding, she would let the world know that the Luo family did not climb the social ladder of the Chu royal family. Her grandfather was completely worthy of Empress Dowager Yan Shi. She was worthy of the title of Great Chu's Empress Dowager. Alright, next, I can refine the pill. Luo Qingtong twisted the appearance of the square immortal cauldron back to the original bronze cauldron with the sun, moon, and star chart. She took out all the good medicinal herbs from the Tianyu imperial family's treasury and began to refine the pill. Luo Qingtong, who had already mastered the low-level inscription technique, could completely utilize the medicinal strength of the medicinal herbs at 200%. The medicinal strength of the refined pill was much richer and purer than before. Chapter 798. Oh my God! Little Pig stared at the pills that Luo Qingtong refined with wide eyes. In this world, probably only a perverted woman like you can refine a low-grade pill that can actually display the effects of a middle-grade pill. No other alchemist could compare to Luo Qingtong with her perfect refinement and inscription technique. After all, inscription technique wasn't easy to learn. Not to mention other inscription masters. It was already amazing if they could learn inscription technique. How could they also be an alchemist? Only a perverted woman like Luo Qingtong could refine pills and pills perfectly. She also knew how to set up arrays without a teacher. Little Pig didn't know how she did it. She seemed to understand something that others spent decades or even hundreds of years to comprehend with just a glance. This kind of talent was simply terrifying. Little Pig didn't know how a monster like Luo Qingtong could exist in this world. She was simply living to shock people. Swoosh! Luo Qingtong collected all the pills refined in the square immortal cauldron and stored them in a jade bottle. Then she frowned. She was wrong before. Originally, she thought that the Tianyu imperial family's treasury in the heavenly evil valley was enough for her to refine pills for her grandfather. But now it seemed that there were too few pills. Luo Qingtong naturally had to spend a lot of money. Otherwise, it wouldn't be enough to intimidate everyone and change people's impression of Grandfather Luo. Anyway, those pills were for Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi. Luo Qingtong didn't feel any heartache and treated it as a show of filial piety. However, Luo Qingtong had used a lot of the medicinal herbs in the Tianyu imperial family's treasury to increase the strength of the Luo family's army and the heavenly evil valley. She forgot to replenish them. The amount of pills refined was too little. Luo Qingtong thought for a while and then remembered that the Ling family was about to ascend to the throne. She would go to the Tianyu Empire to borrow some medicinal herbs so that she wouldn't have to go to the Black Field. At the same time, she would also give the Ling family a congratulatory gift for their ascension. After all, she was the one who helped him get to his current position. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong packed up the things in the Evil Valley and prepared to go to the capital of the Tianyu Empire. When Luo Qingtong was preparing to go to the Tianyu Empire, in the Lanyue family, Lanyue read a piece of information from the Great Chu and was surprised. This girl from the Luo family is really something. Old Master Yen Yu said with a smile as he looked at the report in his hand. Great Chu's Saint Princess was conferred, and it was the transcendent saint of Great Chu who had personally done it. This was incredible. Moreover, that old Master Luo, the country-guarding Marquis of the Eastern Fence Country, had actually become the Empress Dowager of the Great Chu dynasty and had obtained the recognition of the Great Chu dynasty's imperial family. He was about to marry Empress Dowager Yan Shi. If he hadn't seen the information with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. That girl from the Luo family was too powerful. He really didn't know how she did it. It was said that Great Yong's men were also present at that time. He was actually defeated by her? Furthermore, she had yet to reveal her identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. That was a rare sight. Old Master Yen Yu's face was full of admiration. If such a girl was born in his family, how wonderful would it be? If Luo Qingtong had achieved such an achievement as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, Old Master Yen Yu wouldn't have been so surprised and amazed. After all, Luo Qingtong's identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye was extremely popular in the True Spill continent and was sought after by many. No matter who heard her, they would have to give her some face, not to mention that she had the entire Black Field as her backer. But in fact, Luo Qingtong had not revealed her identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, nor had she used the strength of the Black Field to force the people of Great Yong to retreat. Chapter 799. This method was really heaven-defying. Fortunately, his family was on good terms with the other party. Otherwise, such an enemy would be too terrible. Master Lanyue thought of the unlucky Tianyu imperial family. How could the Yuan clan be so arrogant? They didn't treat such a talented and powerful daughter-in-law well. Instead, they despised her and looked down on her. They belittled the Luo clan and Luo Qingtong to the bone. Finally, after knowing Luo Qingtong's identity as evil Dr. Gui Tong, they even wanted to control her. They really dug their own graves. This was great. Wouldn't the entire clan be destroyed as they went on and on? If Yuan Mo hadn't been in the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy, he probably wouldn't have been able to escape. They really had holes in their brains. Especially that Yuan Mo, the hole in his brain was too big. He despised such a good daughter-in-law. If he had protected Luo Qingtong a little, the Tianyu imperial family wouldn't have been so excessive. The enmity between Luo Qingtong and the Luo clan and the Tianyu imperial family wouldn't have been so deep. As old Master Lanyue was thinking this, his hand that was stroking his beard suddenly paused. Wait. The Tianyu imperial family and Yuan Mo didn't like her, but he did. His grandson was well versed in both literature and martial arts. He was talented and was from that place. If he could match him with that girl from the Luo clan. Master Lanyue thought of his grandson's interaction with Luo Qingtong when he came back last time. His eyes lit up and he hurriedly sent someone to write a letter to Lanyue Ju, telling him what had happened to Luo Qingtong recently. In the end, he praised Luo Qingtong greatly. As for Yi Qianxian, in Master Lanyue's view, his protection of Luo Qingtong was completely out of love for her talent. Evil Dr. Gui Tong's identity in the Black Field was a man. How could Ming Zun be tempted by a man? Those who said he was gay were simply nonsense. Moreover, if evil Dr. Ghost Eye and Ming Zun really had such a relationship, why would the former try so hard to avoid the latter? Those words about evil Dr. Ghost Pupil being Ming Zun's lover were probably said by Ming Zun to protect evil Dr. Ghost Pupil and intimidate others. Thinking of this, Master Lanyue suddenly burst into laughter. Anyway, it would be best if he could matchmake Luo Qingtong and his grandson. Even if he couldn't, it wouldn't matter. Just as Master Lanyue was lost in thought, a servant's report came from outside. Old man, Grand Tutor Jiang of the Empire of Qin Dynasty is here to see you. Imperial Tutor Jiang? Old Master Lanyue looked surprised. This person was one of the pillars of the Empire of Qin's Holy Dynasty. He had a high position and great power. He was the Grand Tutor of the Crown Prince. He had been a senior official for 3 dynasties. In the future, When the crown prince ascended to the throne, he would also be an important official of the country. Why would he appear in the Tianyu Empire and visit him? Suddenly, he remembered that Luo Qingtong had become the holy princess of Great Chu. Could it be because of this matter that Grand Tutor Jiang was on his way to the Luo family of Dongli State to congratulate them and passed by the Tianyu Empire? If that was the case, it would make sense. After all, it was not a trivial matter to confer a holy princess. The Empire of Qin's holy dynasty had to send someone to congratulate them. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that the Empress Dowager's second marriage would damage Great Chu's reputation, and the fact that Luo Qingtong was conferred the title of Holy Princess of Great Chu was not made public, the Empire of Qin's holy dynasty's congratulations would be even grander. Now, only some higher-ups knew about this matter. The Empire of Qin's holy dynasty had already shown enough sincerity and respect by sending Jiang Huai, the Grand Tutor of the Crown Prince. Chapter 800. Outside the gates of the Lanue family's residence, there was a carriage that looked very unremarkable, but was actually a rare treasure. Sitting beside Grand Tutor Jiang was a youth in ordinary clothing. The youth's face was handsome and gentle, and his temperament was like a clear spring, making others feel comfortable and happy. Sitting there, he was like a slender bamboo. His entire body was filled with a scholarly and graceful air. Your Imperial Highness the Crown Prince, there is no need for you to personally go to the Luo household. That Luo Qingtong should not be in the Luo household right now, Grand Tutor Jiang said to the youth beside him. It's fine. I just came out to relax. The youth waved his hand, his voice indescribably gentle and elegant. I didn't expect to see her either. However, I am truly curious about that Luo Qingtong. What kind of girl is she to be able to reach such a level? The youth asked with a light smile. I heard that Feng Wan also went to the Empress Dowager's groom selection. She didn't gain any advantage over her? The youth smiled with a clear and handsome face. Feng Wan is Great Yong's #1 princess and genius. She has crushed countless members of our 4 sacred dynasties' imperial families and talented youths. Yet, she was suppressed by Luo Qingtong, a girl from an inferior marquis household? I am truly curious. What kind of charm does such a girl have? At this point, Grand Tutor Jiang smiled and said, If your Imperial Highness really wants to get acquainted with her, then wait until she enters the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Didn't they say that she has already been admitted to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin? It was only because she had to ask for leave that she didn't go to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin to register. Because of this matter, the entire Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin was in an uproar for a long time. I don't know what she has done to deserve such kindness from the Holy Academy. After all, it is extremely difficult for an ordinary person, even if he is the Crown Prince, to ask for a day off is extremely difficult. Also, I heard that her Tianyu Academy set a new record for all the academies in the Empire of Qin. Out of the 10 people who entered the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, 8 of them were heaven-rank candidates. That's already the highest number of academies. Although some of them are not worthy of the name, to be able to receive such grace from the Holy Court, I'm afraid this Luo Qingtong is indeed extraordinary. It's said that she's the leader of those heaven-rank candidates. That's right. I've heard of this as well. The Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin said with a smile, That's why I came out with the Grand Tutor after hearing about her deeds. It would be best if we could meet each other. If not, then we can only meet each other in the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. But at that time, I'm afraid it won't be just me who wants to get to know her. At this point, the young man's elegant aura suddenly radiated with a hint of domineering aura. This was the domineering aura of a king that could only be cultivated as a crown prince and crown prince. No matter how elegant a person was, he wasn't a completely harmless little animal. He was a resting tiger pretending to be harmless. Yes. Grand Tutor Jiang seemed to know what the young man was about to say. He nodded and was about to say something when the door to the Lanue clan opened. He immediately shut his mouth. The young man's aura also retracted, making him look like a personal servant who followed Grand Tutor Jiang. The two of them followed the servants of the Lanue clan inside. Chapter 801. They want us to humiliate the Ling family so that they can't inherit the throne of the Tianyu Empire? The envoy from the Empire of Qin frowned as he read the letter. The one who sent the letter was the eldest son of their clan leader. He was the one who had the most potential in their clan. This letter had the family's seal on it. Obviously, the envoy had gotten the clan's approval. But to humiliate the Ling family so that they couldn't inherit the throne of the Tianyu Empire? The Ling family's ascension to the throne was supported by evil Dr. Gui Tong. When the Tianyu Empire changed hands, the Ling family requested to inherit the throne of the Tianyu Empire. The Empire of Qin had already agreed. After all, it was just an empire. For the Empire of Qin, it didn't matter who ascended to the throne, not to mention the black field behind evil Dr. Gui Tong. The Empire of Qin wouldn't provoke and offend the black field over such a trivial matter. But now, the clan was asking them to humiliate the Ling family. The envoy from the great Qin sacred dynasty was put in a difficult position. At this moment the person beside him suggested, "My lord, I think the message is asking us to humiliate the Ling family so that they will give up the throne of the Tianyu Empire." The subordinate said, "Think about it. The Empire of Qin gave the Black Field a name and acknowledged their legitimacy to inherit the throne of the Tianyu Empire. That's the grace of the Empire of Qin. But what if the Ling family is arrogant and doesn't take the Empire of Qin seriously? Then this grace will be wasted, won't it?" The subordinate said with a sinister smile. "We'll do whatever we want when we get there. Whether the Ling family can't stand it and give up or resist, we'll achieve our goal. My lord, I heard that the eldest son of your clan is in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin and has a good relationship with Yuan Ma. You're probably helping him vent his anger. My lord, if you do this well, you won't be punished at all. Instead, you'll be doing a meritorious deed for the clan. At that time, with the support of the clan, my lord's strength and status will definitely rise to another level," the subordinate said respectfully. Hearing that, the envoy narrowed his eyes and laughed. Then he laughed and said, "That's right." He patted his subordinate's shoulder and said, "You're right. If that's the case, the sacred dynasty won't be able to blame anyone. Moreover, he would be able to complete the task assigned to him by his clan, and from then on, he would have a meteoric rise." Wonderful. The envoy clapped his hands. "When we enter Tianyu's imperial capital, there's no need to give them any face. Humiliate him to death. Oh right, which Ling clan rose to power by stepping on Yuan clan?" The envoy rolled his eyes and immediately came up with an idea. It would be a wonderful thing if he could ruin the Ling family's succession to the throne of the Tianyu Empire and curry favor with young Master Yuan Mo. Thinking of this, the envoy ordered his men to speed up towards the Tianyu Empire. In the imperial palace of the Tianyu Empire, Grandfather Ling was pleasantly surprised to see Luo Qingtong. "Miss Qingtong," he said respectfully. Without Luo Qingtong's permission, he didn't reveal her identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Seeing his actions, a few of the Ling family's juniors present were shocked. Why is grandfather so respectful to her? Chapter 802. She looked at Luo Qingtong's beautiful face and a trace of displeasure flashed across her face. Qiu Manling followed her mother back to the Ling family. As the daughter of the Ling family who had married the best, she was very confident in the Ling family. The Qiu family was quite famous in the Blue Moon Commandery of the Empire of Qin Sacred Dynasty. A commandery was a vassal state established in the territories of the princes and princesses of the Empire of Qin Sacred Dynasty. It was also a subordinate of the Empire of Qin Sacred Dynasty, and had to pay tribute to the dynasty. However, in terms of strength and status it was superior to the empire. Qiu Manling was born in the Blue Moon Commandery and was naturally arrogant. If the Ling family hadn't obtained the throne of the Tianyu Empire, she wouldn't have returned to the Ling family. Now that he saw grandfather Ling treating Luo Qingtong so intimately and respectfully, he instantly felt indignant. Even the other party didn't treat her like this. Could it be that her status as the legitimate daughter of the Qiu family in the Blue Moon Commandery couldn't compare to this young girl in front of her? Qiu Manling didn't think the Ling family would be acquainted with the legitimate daughter of a powerful family. After all, it was said that this time, the throne was won by the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. If the Ling family had connections in the Empire of Qin Sacred Dynasty, why would they need the other party's help? Thinking of this, Qiu Manling's expression became even more arrogant and dissatisfied. "I don't know either." The Ling family girl she asked shook her head and said, "But I heard that she is the legitimate daughter of the Luo family in the easternly country?" When she heard the name Qingtong, she had some impression. After all, she was engaged to Yuan Mo. Soon, she remembered Luo Qingtong's identity and immediately told Qiu Manling. When she heard that the other party was only the legitimate daughter of a marquis from an inferior country and was engaged to the former Yuan imperial family of the Tianyu Empire, a trace of disdain flashed across Qiu Manling's face. The people of the Ling family really had no confidence at all. They had to curry favor with such a person. Were they afraid that the other party would cause trouble for them? That's right. After all, they didn't rely on their own strength to destroy the former imperial family. But what was wrong with this Luo Qingtong? The Yuan family was already destroyed and she still came to ask for money? If she was in her shoes, she wouldn't be shameless. Qiu Manling looked at Luo Qingtong with disdain. After grandfather Ling and Luo Qingtong chatted for a while and left, she led a group of Ling family disciples forward. She looked up at Luo Qingtong and said, "May I know where elder sister is from? Seeing the young masters and young mistresses of the Ling family, you didn't even greet us. You must have an extraordinary background, right? Can you tell us so that we can pay s?" She of Qingtongs, Qiu said of the families of the capital of the Qin family was Qiu's. She clearly knew Luo Qingtong's identity, but she purposely asked. Then, she mentioned her identity and the matter of her greeting. She was pressuring Luo Qingtong. Manling. Hearing her words, the Ling family's young girl beside her hurriedly pulled her back. No matter what the other party's background was, she was still grandfather Ling's guest. It wasn't good for them to target her like this. Luo Qingtong raised her brows and looked at the young girl standing in front of her. The other party was using her status to pressure her? Luo Qingtong found it funny. With her status as a princess of the Great Chu sacred dynasty, even if the one standing here was the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin, she didn't need to kneel, bow, or salute. Chapter 803. For the sake of the Ling family, Luo Qingtong didn't want to bicker with them. She looked at the group of curious Ling family youths behind Qiu Manling and nodded with a faint smile. Luo Qingtong. These people weren't here to cause trouble for her. Besides, they were Ling Yuer and Ling Tianhan's siblings. Luo Qingtong thought for a moment, then took out a few jade bottles and handed them to them. These are the gifts that Tianhan and you asked me to bring you. After all, they were half a family. Luo Qingtong didn't mind helping Ling Yuer and Ling Tianhan out. Moreover, grandfather Ling had just agreed to help her transfer the medicinal ingredients. The Ling family was preparing for the coronation and was very busy. Since old Master Ling was so concerned about her, Luo Qingtong naturally had to return the favor. These jade bottles contained pills that she had refined for the Luo family soldiers and the Heavenly Evil Valley. They were pills that could improve their physique. They weren't very precious to her, but to the outside world, they were priceless. Combined with Luo Qingtong's medicinal liquid, the effects would be greatly enhanced. Taking them over a long period of time would improve one's innate talent. Humph. I wonder what kind of trash these are. Qiu Manling looked at the jade bottles with disdain. With the other party's status as a low-level family from a low-level country, what good things could he bring out? What gifts for Ling Tianhan and Ling Yuer? She must be afraid that others would reject her gifts and look bad, so she purposely said that? Qiu Manling's expression became even more disdainful. She wouldn't want these things even if they were given to her. In fact, Luo Qingtong didn't intend to give them to her. She had only prepared a portion for the Ling family disciples. When it was Qiu Manling's turn, there wasn't any left. In any case, this young miss of the Qiu family didn't care about her trash, right? Luo Qingtong's smile was faint. Qiu Manling looked at her and gritted her teeth. She said, "Luo Qingtong, I remember your name. Aren't you the legitimate daughter of a marquis from an inferior country that the royal family of Tianyu despises?" She sneered at Luo Qingtong. What? Now that the royal family of Tianyu has been destroyed, you have no one to rely on, so you want to rely on the Ling family? Do you think that just because Tianyu's royal family doesn't want you, our Ling clan will? Even if the fifth prince doesn't like you, would cousin Tianhan like you? Let me tell you, stop daydreaming. The moment Qiu Manling said that, Little Pig's voice rang out in Luo Qingtong's mind. Oh my god, I'm so happy. So your backing is the royal family of Tianyu, and now you want to rely on the Ling clan? Ling Tianhan doesn't even like you. I can't take it anymore. I'm dying of laughter. Oh my god. Even if you gave Ling Tianhan that chance, he wouldn't dare to take a fancy to you. Damn. Also, what the hell was he trying to do with the Ling family? Didn't they see how respectful old Master Ling was just now? Also, Little Pig was laughing so hard that he was about to collapse in Luo Qingtong's sleeve. Tianyu's royal family was destroyed by you. This girl has a bright future in telling jokes. I can't take it anymore. I'm dying of laughter. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh at Little Pig's words. Qiu Manling was instantly enraged when she saw the smile on her face. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.